And now, introducing a real mensch who wants to toss up a Hail Mary and be pimps from Oakland or cowboys from Arizona. Grow up, Peter Pan, Count Chocula. We've done a million shows, and guess what? We've rocked them all. He is Glenn Clark.
I was watching it recently. I'm trying to think of... Oh, no. Was I watching that or was I watching... There was something... Old School was on recently. That's what I was watching. I've noticed that the Comedy Central these days has just basically become day-long reruns of The Office.
Basically.
Which I'm in favor of. Like, I actually find it... I'll make a comparison. I think legally there should be a kids channel where an episode of SpongeBob is always playing. Like, no matter what time it is, I can just go to that channel and there's a SpongeBob episode playing, and my kids can just, stare at that for a little while. I let the TV do the parenting for a bit. In the same way, for adults, I feel like there should be a channel where there is always an episode of The Office playing at all times. So I don't have to go through. Mary's like, well, you can always pull up Peacock or whatever it's on. I get it, but it's one less step that I have to take, right? Like, I can and I don't want to need. Again, it's about turning my brain off. I don't want to have to pick the episode. They can pick it for me.
Right.
They can do it. I'm good. I don't need to. I'll let them handle it. And so I appreciate that. So on Saturday night, I was looking for... No, maybe it was Friday night, because I had 2 games to do on Saturday. I had the Loyola game and the Stevenson game. And I was looking for something brainless to put on in the background that wouldn't distract me too much. Something that, I'm familiar with. I was like, I'll go put on an episode of The Office, right? Because, I've seen them all. There's nothing new to watch there. It's just something pleasant, right? It's agreeable. It's something I can put on. And I went, and I found that instead of playing an episode of The Office, they were running the motion picture Blended on Comedy Central. And I said to myself, well, this is a travesty, but then the next thing I wanted to know is it because Comedy Central is available in Russia and they want to do their part? They want to help make life miserable for the Russians. That's what I was wondering. And if so, thank you for your service, Comedy Central. I appreciate it. Well done. I can only imagine the amount of torture that it would provide to the folks in Russia right now if you continue to air nothing but Blended between now and whenever this effing war ends.
Isn't Blended basically the same movie as Just Go With It? Did he make back-to-back of the same movie but with just different female leads?
Paul, this is the part where you're going to lose me. I most certainly have not watched either of these films. There is no chance.
I have seen both. I will give Adam Sandler a shot
either of
every
this
time.
motion picture.
Except for Jack and Jill.
You have a problem, sir. Have you been in abusive relationships?
I've been in abusive relationships. I've been abused. But
Paul, just blink twice. You're okay. All right. Okay,
nothing wrong with little Adam Sandler.
No, there's a lot wrong with everything the man has done for other than Uncut Gems, of course, for about a decade. We're sitting on about a decade, and it's really more than that because Little Nicky was longer than a decade ago, and that was horrendous.
That movie was pretty bad.
Everything since then, it's all bad. It's just all bad.
Well, didn't he say that he stopped making movies for himself and he started making movies for his kids?
I think he should maybe make motion pictures for other people's kids. I think that maybe just because his children enjoy it, that wouldn't even be a good parameter. Make anything that anybody else might enjoy.
Live-action SpongeBob starring Adam Sandler.
I'm for it. For it! Good morning, Glenn Clark Radio. Hi, it's a Monday edition of the program. Hope you guys were able to get a touch and a feel for the CIAA tournament over the course of last week. Really an amazing event for our city. I know there were so many great events that surrounded it, and looking forward to having it back in a not brand new, but a renovated Royal Farms Arena next year. It was wonderful to have people here, to have there be tourism dollars flowing through the city of Baltimore during a time where typically there is not a lot of tourism dollars flowing through. So just a great weekend and a great week all around for the city, for the CIAA. That was a wonderful thing. It was a good weekend if you're a Maryland basketball fan. If unlike other sports, like unlike professional sports, where you get to a certain point in the season and the team's just better off losing. In college sports, there's never a moment because you don't get a draft pick out of it. There's no draft to be had. So it's pleasant to win a game. Let's not oversell it, right? Let's not pretend like suddenly Maryland's a threat to go and do something in the Big Ten tournament, but it was pleasant. It's a pleasant feeling. There was a slightly larger crowd than you would have expected. I got into I ended up going back and forth for a while yesterday with our buddy Jeff Ehrman from InsideMDSports.com. There is literally nothing in sports Twitter that bothers me the way attendance bitching bothers me. And I saw Jeff share a tweet. And Jeff, I don't think if you're a Maryland fan, I don't think I'm hiding a secret or unveiling a secret. Jeff doesn't live here. Jeff actually lives in Ohio, and yet covers Maryland and covers it as well as anybody else does. Better in a lot of cases, and typically has significant breaking news. So Jeff wasn't there. He was sharing someone else's photo, and he captioned it with the word weak, as if the place should have been sold out because they were celebrating the 20th anniversary yesterday. To which I said back, like, Jeff, the 2002 team wasn't playing in the game. It was still going to be the 2022 team playing in the game. They were just going to be there as a gimmick to wave to the crowd. Like, I'm going to buy a ticket to watch someone wave to the crowd? No offense. I love these guys. We're going to have Lonny Baxter come on with us in a couple of minutes. I'm grateful for what they did 20 years ago, but all they're doing here is waving. I ain't paying money to watch somebody wave. It's still the same team playing in the game. Now, as it turns out, unexpectedly, they ended up playing ridiculously well during the course of yesterday's game and knocking down shots, and Fats Russell and Eric Ayala were great. And, as it turns out, if you were going to go to a game this year, yesterday was probably the game to go to. But the idea of complaining or trying to call people out as if they're a bad fan base because they chose to pass on going to see a bad basketball team with no coach and with no players on the roster who are likely to ever be a part of a significant Maryland basketball team, stop it. Get the F out of here. The tickets ain't free. And the idea that it was supposed to be drastically different because the 20th anniversary team was coming back, well, for what it's worth, they definitely had more people at the game yesterday because of that than they otherwise would have. But the idea that suddenly, have you ever in your life purchased a ticket to a game based on who else was going to be in attendance for the game?
No, but there are times where I would have if I didn't have other things going on.
Like what?
Like the Orioles' 60th anniversary. Although the Orioles were really good then. That was 2014. They were really good, but I would have liked to have been there because of what they did after the game.
Okay. I mean, that's an interesting comparison, right? Because I guess the question would become, if last year's team did the same thing, you would still purchase tickets because of that.
Probably, especially because I missed the one in 2014.
And I guess this is a little bit more difficult for me too, because you're so inclined to go to baseball games, and you're a baseball person in your heart, and this is what you care about. That I don't know if it's a fair comparison, because I don't think you're a casual person.
That's a fair point.
It's not nothing, right? Like, it's not nothing. I've never in my life made a decision about whether or not to purchase based on who was going to be in attendance for the game. It's never something I've done. I've been to games where American presidents were there, but that didn't go because of that. I can't fathom purchasing. Now, some people do, and some people did yesterday, but enough to fill an arena just because somebody was going to walk out and wave? I think maybe if it's somebody who hasn't been back, I'm trying to think of a good example of this.
I got one.
Yeah.
Ed Reed, he was put into the Ring of Honor in, 2015? I think it was.
Sounds right.
And it was a game against the Rams, and Joe Flacco tore his ACL. The only reason I went to that game was because Ed Reed was being inducted into the Ring of Honor at halftime.
Maybe. That might be true, but there's no comparison to NFL games. There's only 8 home games every year, right?
Okay.
Like, I mean, it's just those things aren't announced as gimmicks. They're more like,
we're doing this.
The tickets are going to be sold no matter what. We're just doing this anyway, right? Like, yes, as it turns out, that year it was a difficult season for anybody to want to come to Ravens games. But you're making an argument that at least it's a thought for you,
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps it's a thought for somebody else. It's never been a thought for me as an adult. As a child, perhaps. As an adult, to spend my money on something just because somebody else would be there is not something that I ever think about. But that's fair. If you're saying you've thought about it and other people might have, that's clearly somebody did yesterday. But the idea that it's like embarrassing that the game wasn't sold out, no, this Maryland basketball situation is embarrassing. That's the embarrassment. It's remarkable that anybody's going. We lose context. We lose the ability to think these things through. There's nothing to see. There's no special player. There's no coach. There's no one to support. The only thing to see yesterday was the guys waving at the crowd. And again, as it turns out, in hindsight, a very solid performance and a decent win. Let's not oversell it. Let's not pretend like Ohio State's a national championship contender, but they're a good team. I can't fathom it. I can't fathom that thought, but it's still pleasant. It's still pleasant if you're going to have a day like that where you have these guys back and there's a little bit more attention being paid to the game than the average game. It's still pleasant for it to go that way. Everybody gets to feel good about it. Does it mean anything today? No, it doesn't. It doesn't suddenly make Danny Manning a candidate to be the next head coach. It doesn't suddenly make Maryland a threat to do something. You acknowledge, and this is the part that deserves to be said, you do acknowledge, and I've acknowledged it multiple times, this thing could have fallen off the rails. It shouldn't have, because the talent on the roster alone is enough that this should never have been a 3-win Big Ten team. But the circumstances would certainly have allowed for a lot of groups of guys to simply quit. There are plenty of cases throughout the history of sport where when you go through something like this, coach walks away, another coach gets busted and he's gone, another assistant coach, all of these bizarre scenarios, a group of guys that don't really know each other all that well because they just sort of came together over the course of the last summer. There's absolutely scenarios where that group of players just decides to quit. That they're not giving it their best effort. They don't care. They don't want to try. They're more interested in partying. They're more interested in whatever it is that they're interested in. They just frankly quit. And this team hasn't done that. And there's something to be said for that. What it is, I don't know how to define it. There's an alarm going off in the background. It's quite annoying. It's not defined by that means Danny Manning should be the next coach at the University of Maryland. It also doesn't mean that Danny Manning should be dismissed. Of course, you let him be a part of the process. And if you've gotten to know Danny Manning and what you've learned about Danny Manning is so overly impressive that you believe he could be the guy, then you measure it. There might be a point at which, hey, we've done all of the math, and these are the guys we've identified as our top candidates, but we can't get those guys. We tried. They don't want to leave. I write about this today at PressBoxOnline.com. It'll be coming. It might very well be that if you've identified Ed Cooley as your top guy, and Ed Cooley turns around and says, I'm really happy at Providence. I don't know if you heard, they just won the Big East regular season title over the weekend. They have insane atmospheres for their games. He's a beloved figure despite the fact that he's won one NCAA tournament game in his entire tenure. If Ed Cooley says, I'm good, I'm just happy to be here, and Andy Enfield is able to successfully use the Maryland opening to get USC to pay him an absurd amount of money to live on the beach in Southern California, and Kevin Willard just never really wanted the job. And all of a sudden, you're looking down your list, and you're like, well, we could go hire the guy from Colorado State. Nothing against Nico Medved, who might very well be the qualified guy. There is a point on the list at which I think Danny Manning comes back into play. And you say, well, yeah, I mean, it's relevant that he kept things from falling apart during the course of the season, and they stayed semi-competitive, and they won a game that surprised people, and everybody really liked him and thought he was a good leader both on the floor and off the floor. And you start doing all of that math, and you say to yourself, yeah, you know, he deserves to be in the conversation. By the way, we got to know that he wants the job, too, in the same way you got to compare with everybody else. He's not near the top of the list of candidates for me, but he's on the list. He's somewhere in there. And if you don't find your coach from that first group of guys. And, I've always thought that Eric Musselman and Nate Oates were shooting for the stars. It was just too high. It was not legitimate. But sure, throw them on the list too. If you get through those top 5 guys, and now you're sitting and looking at a list of Mark Pope from BYU and Nico Medved from Colorado State, and guys that are, and Mike Bray, for example, not undeserving candidates, but not as slam dunk of candidates as your top guys were, maybe you do reconsider Danny Manning. Not to say I think that's who should get the job. I want to make that very clear. But at some point, I think he remains on the list, and you acknowledge that you can't say he's done oh boy, I want to be careful how to say this. You'd be hard pressed to say this has been a good job that he's done because they still haven't won a lot of games. Yeah, right.
He's 9-12 since taking over.
But you acknowledge it definitely could have been worse given the circumstances. You acknowledge that it could have been off. Paul, could you do me a favor and just close that door for me? I appreciate it. I tried putting up with it for as long as I could, thinking it might just go away, but unfortunately it did not. Or at least close it enough. I don't have to close it the whole way, enough that maybe it's not as overwhelming. Of course, this is going to be really awkward when we find out there's an actual fire in the building, and, I didn't do anything about it, but typically I start getting messages like that from the building people that, no, this one's legitimate. You need to get out, normally the way that it works. Ay. All right. So anyway, there's that. That's and again, as I mentioned, Lonny Baxter will join us in a few minutes. Dan Bonner was on the call for yesterday's game for CBS. He's going to join us as well. We'll get his thoughts on where the program is as a whole. And that's where my conversation with Jeff Erman kind of led to, was the state of the program itself. Where he's like, this is a basketball school. Your championship team's coming back and you can't pack the place. I'm like, in what world is it a basketball school? How many basketball schools haven't been within a game of a Final Four in 20 years? I mean, I get it. It's historically a basketball school. It's been a basketball school. It's been a relevant basketball program, but it ain't. And you don't have to like it, and you can try to quantify in whatever way you want to quantify it, but there's nothing about Maryland basketball that's significant today, or has been for a very long time. If you think that's a basketball school, in the context of but basketball is more important than football is on campus, okay, but the same can be said about Fordham. It ain't a basketball school. You can call it a potential sleeping giant, and it could become a basketball school again within years with a new coach taking over. But today, it's just not the case. I mean, we can only deal in reality, and the reality is it just ain't that. Basketball school. Towson's becoming a basketball school. They pounded James Madison on the road on Saturday. I mean, obliterated them. They now are in a very unique situation where tonight they play a game, and if they win it, they win the CAA. It's just that, they're down by 9 with 18 minutes to play when the game restarts. It's a very bizarre scenario. There is good news for Towson. The math was done on this. Our buddy Terry Nolan Jr., who was not dressed for the Delaware game when it was started, will be able to play. There was some confusion about that. Apparently there was a past rule in the NCAA where if you weren't dressed for the game and it was suspended, you could not re-enter when the game was restarted. That has been addressed. That has been taken care of. That rule is no longer on the books. Terry Nolan Jr. can play tonight for Towson in the second half of their game against Delaware, but they got to rally. They're down by 9. If they can, then they're going to be the number 1 seed in the CAA tournament. They're going to be regular season champions, which is a notable accomplishment. If they cannot, they'll still be the 2 seed. They'll still have a very good chance of winning the CAA tournament and reaching the NCAA tournament, which, of course, is what matters in a one-bid league. So that's the scenario going into tonight. Navy is the 2 seed in the Patriot League tournament. Loyola, unfortunately, things really kind of fell apart for the Greyhounds in the last week of the regular season. No shame in losing at Navy. They're very good, but then they followed it up with a loss at American to wrap the regular season. So they're going to be the 6th seed in the Patriot League tournament as well. So that's kind of the overview of college basketball for the week and the weekend in the area. Today's show is also brought to you by, Underdog Fantasy Football. If you're not playing Underdog, I don't know what you're waiting for. So much fun, even if you don't win every time. And it's like betting. You're not going to win every time. You're going to feel like you're betting when you play Underdog Fantasy Football because you can play player props, parlays, all of those types of contests. Plus, they have the traditional daily and weekly fantasy games available for you. Download the Underdog app or go to UnderdogFantasy.com. I get it. Football is over, but they've got basketball contests and hockey contests, and we pray at some point baseball contests as well. All available. UnderdogFantasy.com, and when you use the code PRESSBOX and make your first deposit up to $100, they will match it with free money for you to play with at Underdog Fantasy Football. Why don't we grab our first break? Scheduled to be joined by Lonny Baxter here in just a couple of minutes. We know Dan Bonner's going to check in before the hour is over. That's all coming up. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Glory Days Grill's winter seasonal menu is back with comfort classics like their house-made meatloaf and short-rib grilled cheese. It also features the center-cut sirloin with grilled shrimp, the char-grilled pork tenderloin, grilled meatloaf sandwich, smoky thigh wings with Alabama barbecue sauce, and a Brussels and bacon appetizer. All of these items pair well with Devil's Backbone 8-point IPA or their anniversary IPA brewed by Devil's Backbone. And try their seasonal cocktails, Blood Orange Bourbon Cider, Apple Ginger Mule, and Captain's Hot Cider. Find out more and get your order in today at glorydaysgrill.com. Great food, good sports.
The newest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Maryland men's basketball's 2002 NCAA Tournament Championship, as Gary Williams reflects on how the program rose from the ashes of NCAA sanctions to the pinnacle of the sport, and why his perspective of the title run has changed now 2 decades later. Plus, Juan Dixon, Lonny Baxter, and the rest of the team relive the moments that ultimately led them to cutting down the nets in Atlanta. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farms stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
If you miss anything, don't forget that you can find whole shows later on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon Podcasts. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
All right, back in here on GCR. What a weekend it was down in College Park, and we know our next guest was a big part of all of it because he was a massive part of the Maryland Basketball National Championship in 2002. He remains the only player in school history to be the most outstanding player of a regional, having done it twice in his career. He is the great Lonny Baxter, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Lonny, it's Glenn and Paul. It's always great to catch up, man. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
It's great to chat with you, my friend. Hey, to take me through, right? Like, I can only imagine what it means to all you guys to get back together. Was there one particular moment this weekend, maybe somebody you hadn't seen in a while, anything like that, that really stood out to you being back around the guys?
Yeah, just everybody getting together. I think it's the first time everyone has seen Ryan Randall since we all left school.
Wow.
And just to have the whole team back together again, it was just amazing. Great group of guys. We had a blast this weekend.
Take me back. It's funny, Gary brought up Ryan Randall to me, too. I didn't realize that Ryan had kind of disappeared on everybody over the years. I had no idea that was the case.
Yeah, he.
Lonnie, take me back. Finish the sentence for me, right? The reason we were able to get the job done in '02 was because of what?
Because we felt like we should have won in 2001 at
Yep.
Minneapolis, but
Yep.
we didn't. We don't like to make any excuses, but people who were at that game,
The
who saw that
officiating
game,
sucked, Lonnie. I'll say it. It was the worst officiated game I've ever seen in my life.
some strange things happened in the second half. We were up 22. Going into halftime, and then it was just an unbelievable second half. But it is what it is, and that propelled us to come back and win it all next year.
No doubt about it. A magical team, a magical run that it was. Lonnie, I asked Gary this recently. I'm going to give you the same question. How has your perspective changed 20 years removed, right? Like from what you were feeling that night to now looking back on it 20 years later, how has your perspective of winning the title that year changed?
I wouldn't say it changed at all. Being from the state of Maryland, it's still a dream come true. When I see people, out and, they recognize me and like, thank you for what you did in '02. So it's still been the same for me. Me and Juan Dixon were the two players who were from the state of Maryland. So it meant a lot more for us, to win a national championship for your home school. It was just a dream come true, and it still is to this day.
I bring that up because Gary said in a way like he had more appreciation for it now, all these years removed, right? Because like in the moment, you're still living it. Obviously, you were about to start your NBA career, and has there been any of that where like oddly you have a greater appreciation for it now because you're more removed from it?
Yeah, of course. Just looking back at the tremendous, team we had. And the chemistry, the camaraderie. Just a great group of guys to always be around. You appreciate it more because we're not in the locker room every day with each other, with each other anymore. We don't hang out. Everybody has their own lives, families and everything. So when you get back together, you really appreciate it more, after these 20 years.
He is Lonny Baxter. He's with us here on GCR. Lonnie, you mentioned Juan, and I saw you sharing. By the way, you were such a wonderful social media follow this weekend, by the way, to see all the pictures of everybody from over the course of the weekend, giving me all those sort of those touchy feelings, I saw you share a picture of Juan with you, Juan, and Robin, and it got me thinking, right? Like you've watched Juan begin his own coaching career now. Were you at all surprised that was the path for him? Were you knowing what you know about Juan? Did you expect him to become a head coach one day, or were you surprised by it at all? And what do you make of Juan as he launches this career and what he's capable of doing as a coach?
Oh, not at all. I'm not surprised. Juan, he loves the game very much, and with his gifts, he's great at coaching. That's why he took that path. I remember when he was on Turgeon's staff to start out with, and he's just a great student of the game, and now he's passing his knowledge on to the kids that he coaches, and his own kids as well. So no, I'm not surprised at all.
Did you feel that when you were playing alongside of him? Did you like have moments where you're like, bro, you're not the coach?
Yeah, Juan has that type of leadership, where, he's just driven, he's very relentless, just has a great passion for it. So, yeah, this is where he belongs as a head coach.
Do you believe he could, Lonnie, obviously what's going on right now at Maryland, of course, besides the fact that they got a really nice win yesterday, and I can only imagine that added to the level of fun for you guys being there, that they played so well. But you know what's going on, and there are various opinions. Do you believe, I'm not asking you if he should, but if Juan were to be hired to be the next basketball coach at the University of Maryland, do you believe he could succeed immediately at a level as significant as the Big Ten?
Of course, like I say, Juan was, on Turgeon's staff. He knows the program. Everybody loves Juan. I think he would be great, for that job. Coming back to his alma mater where it all started. I mean, it would just be something else in the history books, to write about because, I mean, Juan's that type of person. He's very charismatic. He has the drive, he has the energy and the passion for it. So it would be great to see him as the head coach of Maryland.
He is Lonny Baxter. He is with us here on GCR. Lonny, speaking of this, as someone who obviously cares a great deal about the program, the way that you do, of course, right? Like, do you have things that you want to see during the course of this coaching search? Do you have any opinion at all about what you want from the next coach at the University of Maryland?
What do I want?
Yeah.
I just want us to be able to compete on a high level again. I mean, it's been a very down year this year. It's been a lot of adversity, a lot of strange things going on. But I just want to see us to compete at a high level. The way that we know, Maryland is capable of playing. So, I mean, that's all I really want, to be honest.
Do you worry at all? I bring this up. We were talking about it earlier in the show. Do you worry at all about, it's so great to celebrate you guys, but we recognize in the 20 years since there hasn't even been, an Elite Eight run since that point. Do you worry at all about whether or not Maryland can return to that prominence that you guys created for them?
Of course they can, and I believe that they will. It's just a matter of time, to get things turned back around. But I know that it will happen sooner or later. Like I say, I'm just waiting to see, what happens, just letting the process play out, and then just going from there.
I mean, I appreciate that, and I certainly believe that there's no reason to think that the right coach couldn't get Maryland basketball back to that point, right? Unfortunately, they don't make many more Gary Williams. There's unfortunately.
Yeah. I was teasing him this weekend. I was like, you need to come back and save the program. So,
Could you imagine, by the way, how electric that place would be in the fall?
Oh, man, it would be.
If they just went that route. A lot of people have thrown that idea out, right? And I say it knowing it's almost certainly not going to happen, but there have been a lot of people who have thrown out the idea of, like, what if you identified Juan as the next guy, but you said, let's do 2 years, right? Let's do 2 years of letting Gary come back and being the guy for 2 years and Juan being with him, and then acknowledge like a succession plan for Juan to take over for Gary after that. I don't think they're going to do – right? But like that sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
I mean, I've seen stranger things. You never know what can happen. So,
man,
we just have to wait it out and see, and then just hope for the best.
Oh, it would be so cool. Hey, I was talking. One of the things when we had Gary on last week that I brought up, and I want to run by you, Lonny, the relationship you guys shared with him, where he could get after you, but you guys were able to give it right back to him. And unlike a lot of coaches who would be fragile and who would say like, "No, I'm the coach. You don't talk to me that way." How impactful was it that you guys created a bond and a relationship where you were able to go back, curse at him, and yell at him, and give him a taste of his own medicine? And how significant was that for you guys in getting to where you ultimately got to?
From day one, Gary always showed tough love, and I always understood it from the beginning. And, there were times where, like you say, we would go back and forth, but he knew we were going to give it our all on the court. If we made a mistake, we were going to make a mistake going 100 miles per hour. And he just trusted us, so we, gave our hearts back to him, just giving it all on the court, because, he's our fearless leader. And we trusted him, and we would do anything, that he said because, like I say, he's Gary, and he just instilled that in us, and that's why we were able to, persevere through all the ups and downs and adversity through the years at Maryland.
That's cool. Hey, Lonny, this is a great question that came in from Chris. He wants to know if you've kept anything for 20 years later. What do you still have, like memorabilia-wise, from that season, from that run, from that night in Atlanta? What have you held on to 20 years later that you still have, like, in your office or something like that?
I mean, I get gifts all the time. I got a gift a couple weeks ago from someone, a picture of the starting five of the national championship team, me, Blake, Chris Wilcox, Mouton, and Juan. It's sitting on my desk where I work at Jim Coleman Honda.
That's cool.
And I mean, Gary Williams' wife bought a couple cars to me, and I delivered them both to his house, and he gave me a poster of the celebration of me and Juan, on the floor celebrating, and Taj was holding us up. And, things like that, I mean, they're just priceless. They'll be etched in my mind forever, and, 20 years later, I mean, things like that just mean the world to me.
It's so funny, Lonny, you and I talked about this when we were working on our print issue of Press Box, which is available right now, by the way, if you haven't picked it up, the 20th anniversary celebration. You can go pick it up at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations in the area where you find Press Box. But tell me about that image, right? Because it's the most iconic image in Maryland basketball history, right? You guys sharing that moment after the title game was over. When you see that image, what does that mean to you, Lonny?
Oh man, the biggest thing I remember about the title game is just the clock hitting 0 and Juan throwing the ball in the air, and then after that it was just pandemonium, just oh my God, just living on cloud 9 that we actually achieved the national championship after everything we've been through, in the 4 years at Maryland that I was there.
Is it a reminder? You reference a couple times. You guys were the local guys, right? Like, you were more the D.C. guy. He was the Baltimore guy. Does it remind you that, like, this can be done? If the Maryland program can just get kids to stay home and know that you can do this thing, we know how much talent there is in this area, right? Like, we know it's there. Is it a reminder of how much more it can mean for kids if they choose to come to Maryland, being local, that winning it, what you accomplish can mean so much more to you?
Of course, our team, we weren't a bunch of, highly sought-after players. We wouldn't have any McDonald's All-Americans. We all pretty much came in as unknowns, and we left as national champions, and that's something, that'll live with us forever. And I mean, I just can't say enough about, the university, the fans, Coach Williams, my teammates, what all of them mean to me. And this weekend was just a reminder of the special unit that we had.
It's awesome, man. All right, Lonny Baxter. So if somebody's in the market for a vehicle right now, where should they be looking?
Oh, I'm at Jim Coleman Honda in Clarksville. You can stop by anytime. I'm always here. So call in.
I mean, I can only imagine somebody walking. How many times has somebody walked in and been like, "Wait, really? It's you?" How often do you get that in your life?
It happens quite a while. So, but I mean, I'm used to it. I mean, I'm just glad to still be here serving the community and helping in any way I can.
That's awesome, man. We're glad to have you still in the community and back involved with the unit. I know it had been a few years there before you had been back, and we're so glad to have you back more frequently with the University of Maryland and involved, man. Lonny, you're not correct. You're not on Twitter, correct?
No, just Instagram and Facebook.
Instagram and Facebook. You can find Lonny Baxter on either one of those, and of course, give him a follow. It'd be crazy if you weren't at Lonny_Baxter35 or at LB_Jim Coleman _Honda as well. You can find him in those places. Lonny Baxter, greatly appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time for us this morning. Glad that you were back and enjoying it with the guys this weekend. Let's chat again soon, all right?
Okay, thanks for having me, and God bless.
Thank you. Lonny Baxter, one of the all-time greats in University of Maryland history. Appreciate him taking a couple minutes for us this morning. Look, I don't think there's a chance in all hell that it would happen, that scenario with Gary and Juan Dixon. I know people have thrown it out there, and I feel the same things you feel when you say it, right? Like, I absolutely have that feeling of, oh, how wonderful would that be, right?
He's 80, right?
There's that. That's part of it. And it's just not – you want to find the guy that's going to be the guy. Mm. And if you think Juan Dixon's that guy, if you think he's your heck, hire him, right? Go ahead and just hire him. Be on with it. If Juan Dixon's the coach, I'm going to guess Gary Williams is going to be willing to be – he's been helpful with people that he hasn't cared nearly as much about in recent years. I'm going to guess Gary Williams will be as helpful as he can possibly be if you hire Juan Dixon as your head coach. If you believe Juan Dixon's that guy. If you believe it's somebody else, hire that guy. But I assure you, the reason why you have those feelings and why you think about it and you can't dismiss it, I have so many of those same feelings. I get it. It would be magical to do something like that. It would be magical to experience that. Appreciate Lonny Baxter taking a couple of minutes for us here on GCR. All right, today's show is also brought to you by Glory Days Grill. I don't know what else there is to say. I have been to the mountaintop. I have seen it all. And all I wanted was smoky thigh wings from Glory Days Grill. GloryDaysGrill.com is the website. Get your order in. Take care of dinner tonight. You're starting to think about March Madness and wanting to camp out for a weekend and just have nothing but wings and ribs and burgers to celebrate with. Glory Days Grill is, of course, the place to get all of it. And GloryDaysGrill.com is the website. Continue to talk a little Maryland basketball this morning. Thanks again to Lonny Baxter for joining us. They got a really surprising win. Not just surprising they would win, but the manner in which they did it against Ohio State yesterday. And our next guest was on the call, of course, former Virginia coach, CBS analyst. Our friend, Mr. Dan Bonner, is back with us now here on GCR. Dan, it's Glenn and Paul. Always good to catch up with you, sir. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us.
Well, good morning. It's always nice to be invited.
It's great to hear from you, Dan. I was talking about this at the beginning of the show. It's difficult for me to give context to what happened yesterday because I think that you say that there's a testament to the fact that in trying circumstances, Danny Manning has led a group that has not quit, right? Like has not simply folded and given up and packed it in because their coach was gone and they lost another assistant coach. And that means something. Does it mean he happens to be the next head coach at the University of Maryland? I don't know that it means that. I mean, they still haven't won a lot of games in this time. But I do think it means something that they have remained competitive and that they were capable of winning a game like that yesterday, because I do think it's possible that in these circumstances, a lot of groups would say, we got nothing to play for, and they would just kind of fall apart as the season went on.
I think that's an accurate statement, and as much as I think Danny Manning and Matt Brady and Greg Manning and the other people on that staff have done a really nice job, I think the primary people that you have to credit for the fact that they haven't quit are the players themselves. These are obviously, for the most part, very experienced guys. A couple of them, like Fats Russell, came to Maryland for the purpose of seeing whether he could play at that level, and so, it's a circumstance that I've never heard of before, and so I'm sure those guys have never experienced before. And yes, the coaching staff has done a nice job keeping things together, but the players have been fabulous in their competitiveness and their willingness to keep going on.
And that means something, right?
Well, it does mean something, and like I say, I don't know what it means about Danny. Danny is a very good coach, a very good person. I don't know, he's got a personality that is sort of very low key. And I'm not sure that that's what the people at Maryland are looking for. I don't know that people in Maryland have any idea what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody who wants to win the national championship every single year. So they're out of their minds. And I don't know that Danny at this stage in his life wants to deal with that. I don't know. Should Danny Manning be considered? Absolutely. But the fact that the team hasn't quit, is that enough of a recommendation? I don't know the answer to that question. But certainly I think that Danny and his coaching staff, but more importantly his players, have done a really nice job just continuing to play, continuing to compete, continuing to fight.
Dan, you've caught a lot of Maryland basketball games for a long time. You've been around this program for decades at this point. Give me an idea for you. You say, I don't know what it is that Maryland's looking for. What should Maryland be looking for in this search for a new head coach?
Well, number one, I think Maryland, and again, the staff, the administration is limited by the insanity of the Maryland fans. And when I say that, I'm not using that as a pejorative entirely. You want fans who care. Fans is short for fanatics. You want people who care. But I'm not sure that the Maryland fan base has a realistic level of expectations. But put that aside. I think what the Maryland administration should be looking for is somebody who can lead the Maryland program in the current day and age. I think they need somebody who is experienced at a high level, somebody who has some head coaching experience, possibly, although not necessarily. Arizona is doing pretty well with a
really
guy
well.
who is a head coach, who was never a head coach, who was an assistant. Years ago, Kansas, one of the country's top programs, hired a little-known assistant coach named Roy Williams, and that didn't go too badly for them.
Nope, worked out okay.
But part of the thing that is going to be a problem for the Maryland administration is winning the press conference. And I don't think they should worry about doing that. They should get somebody who, for example, and this is a guy I don't think they'll even take a look at, but Dennis Gates, the head coach at Cleveland State, two-time Horizon League Coach of the Year.
Sure.
He's got his team. They're the number one seed in the Horizon League again this year. And that's one of those leagues where you're only getting one bid, so you have to win the tournament, the conference tournament, to get to the NCAA tournament. But he has taken his teams to NCAA tournaments. And he was, for a number of years, the assistant coach for Florida State. And at Florida State, he helped recruit guys like Jonathan Isaac and Xavier Rattan-Mays and Dwayne Bacon and Trent Forrest and M.J. Walker. And, there's a whole string of guys who have played in the NBA. And so that's the pedigree of a person who can recruit, the pedigree of a person who can coach, the pedigree of a person who has long experience in coaching. But again, is he a flashy enough name to satisfy the Maryland fan base? But what I would say is he is exactly the kind of person that they should be looking for.
I love that. I mean, it's a name that I've heard a couple times, not necessarily in connection to Maryland, which is unfortunate. And yeah, everything about his profile suggests he's a coach very much on the rise that is capable of doing significant things the next job. Dan Bonner is with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. Dan, what you allude to, of course, is the idea of you've got to overwhelm us, right? Like we want it to be a home run. Maryland fans think that Nate Oates should want the Maryland job, right? Nate Oates probably doesn't want the Maryland job, if I had to guess. That being said, let me throw out, the names that have been discussed. The Ed Cooley in particular. Ed Cooley's name, I think, is perfect for this conversation. The question I keep coming back to is Maryland a good enough job for someone to leave a place where they're happy? And Ed Cooley, I think, is the perfect example of that, right? Because, my God, just look at that atmosphere in Providence, and he's beloved, and it's his alma mater, and he's this iconic figure despite the fact that he's won one NCAA tournament game during his tenure there, right? If you're somewhere where you're happy, is Maryland a good enough job for you to say, happiness be damned, I got a shot to go do something incredible there, and I got to take it?
Well, I will address that question by saying one thing, and that is happiness is the most important thing. And so if you're someplace where you're happy and you're content, then there is no job that's worth taking. And the guy who demonstrated that year after year after year before he created a job that is now one of those jobs is Mark Few.
Right.
And Mark Few, I have actually talked to him about this over the years, and happy means an awful lot. And so I think that, Ed Cooley is not a guy. I mean, he's a native of Providence. And as you say, he's beloved in Providence. And, every coach out there can look. Mark Turgeon was a popular figure among his colleagues. And the first thing anybody's going to do about the Maryland job is call up Mark. And if Mark describes his experiences, let's face it, Mark was never popular with the Maryland fans, not from the day he got hired. But these are the same fans who ran off their, Gary Williams because he wouldn't dig too deeply into that AAU cesspool. And he wasn't recruiting, even though, none of those guys on that 2002 national championship team were highly recruited guys. That wasn't the way Gary functioned. But, okay, that got passé, so we could get rid of Gary, and now we get in a guy who's supposedly a good recruiter, and he was a good recruiter, but, he wasn't winning the national championship every year, so, we don't like him. So why would Ed Cooley, in a position where he is beloved, why would he want to walk into a situation like that, even, no matter how much money they could offer him?
It's an interesting I'm taking it back a little bit, Dan. Only more the Gary side of things, where I definitely know. I mean, I lived it. There were plenty of people that, there are insane people that exist within every fan base, right? Like that, we know that there are insane people that exist in the Duke fan base. I'm not saying there weren't some of those that existed, but I would never agree the idea that he was run off in any way. Like that seemed a bit, I don't know, over the top to me. Gary, of course, was 2 years removed from that great team with Gravis Vasquez. That, if not for Corey Lucius's shot, obviously in the round of 32, perhaps has a chance to return to the Final Four. I don't know. That seems tough to me. I'm in a weird place where I do think the Maryland fan, they're not just going to love you for the sake of loving you, right? Like the alone being in the title of head coach is not going to make you a beloved figure, and it's one of the things I appreciate, right? I don't think that's the way that it should work within sport. Is just because you have a title, you're treated as a deity. I don't think that should be the case. You're someone that has a job, and a very high paying job within a state, frankly, where tax dollars go to it. But is that something you think coaches would be scared of? Is the fact that they don't immediately get treated as a deity just because they're the head coach somewhere? Like, obviously you know far more about this than I do. Is that the assumption that someone should have, that just being called head coach or in that title should give you the overwhelming appreciation and beloved nature within a fan base because your title is head coach?
I don't think that's the case at all, and I'm miscommunicating if you think that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, you run off a guy who's been to 5 NCAA tournaments in the last 6 years, and it would have been 6 out of 7, except for the COVID year. And I think coaches do look at that. They don't have to be deified just because they're the head coach. But I think a lot of places, most places, 6 NCAA tournaments in 7 years. Now, as has been demonstrated time and time again, that NCAA tournament, the one and done kind of thing, it's a crazy. And even Gary, I've read some articles on him talking about the 2002 national championship team where he says people don't understand how hard that is. I say, you just have to win 6 games. Well, right. It's very hard. Yeah. There's all kinds of things that come up, and so I think the fact that you get there is, you're there 6 times in 7 years, or 5 times in 6 years. Excuse me. Let's be accurate. And nonetheless, you feel, for whatever reason, compelled to give up that job in December, for heaven's sake, right, when you have a team that's 8-4. I think that sends a danger signal to people who are looking at the job, that just what exactly is going on there.
It's interesting, right? Like I'm somewhere in between the two things, because I do think that there is an unrealistic nature of what Maryland basketball is within a percentage of the fan base. I'm flipped on this, because I've always been the Mark Turgeon thing has always been difficult for me, because I think Mark Turgeon's a good coach. I think he was a good man. I don't think in any way at any point was Maryland basketball embarrassing, but I do think it is the nature, like, if you're a high level coach, do we not expect that you're going to be measured by what you do in the biggest circumstances? And Mark Turgeon never, last year they beat UConn. It was the first time he beat a single-digit seed in the NCAA tournament ever. Does that not matter in this context? Are coaches not capable of saying, if I go there, I expect that I'm going to do better than that? I say that not trying to challenge you, Dan. I hope you know that. I'm really just asking questions out loud as we try to go through this process. Yeah.
So no, I don't feel challenged at all. I think all coaches want to be successful. Yeah. And I think they want to be successful at the highest level. And I think they expect to be held accountable if they're not successful. But I think that a lot of coaches would tell you, that Mark Turgeon had a degree of success. Let's take, for example, a person who now everybody would acknowledge is a heck of a coach. His team's having a tough year this year because of some injuries, but Leonard Hamilton is a perfect example. Yep. Leonard Hamilton is somebody who, it was a long time before he got that program really rolling. And so, was Florida State just smart? Did they not care enough about basketball? I don't know what the answer to that question is, but I think when you get to the NCAA tournament 5 times in 6 years, that should count for something. And if your administration or your fan base or whoever is not satisfied with that, all I'm saying is that if I'm somebody who is in a situation, and the name Andy Enfield has been thrown around,
100%, right?
Or Nate Oates or any of these other people who we're talking about, if I'm in a situation where I'm comfortable, then why would I take a job where I know that if I go to the NCAA tournament 5 times in 6 years, that the people, possibly the administration, possibly the fan base, are going to be unhappy with my performance? That's my point here.
Sure.
I'm not criticizing the Maryland fan base. I think they're a great fan base. Again, you have that's what you want. You want people who care, and you want people who care deeply. You don't want apathy. And so I'm okay with that. But what I'm telling you is, if the Maryland fan base or the Maryland administration is looking for this home run hire, then I'm not sure they're going to get it, because if I'm a coach and I'm in a comfortable situation,
right,
why would I go to a place where if I go to the NCAA tournament 5 times in 6 years, people are going to be unhappy? I guess that's the point I'm making.
Well, and I do think it leads in. I promise I'll let you go here in a minute, Dan. I really appreciate you taking the time for us this morning.
Glad to do it.
I'll follow it up with, what is Maryland basketball, right? And I do think this is the relevant question that comes from all of this, right? It ties it all together. Is this a program 20 years removed from even sniffing a Final Four, right? Like, it's not even like they've been close in 20 years removed. And, of course, they celebrated it yesterday while you guys were there. Is Maryland still that type of program? Like, is it still a place where you can go and believe you're winning national championships if you're the next head coach at Maryland?
I think if you're the coach in the Big Ten, if you take a job at a Big Ten school, or you take a job at an ACC school or an SEC school, or whatever, any of the big conferences, then you have to look at the possibility, at least the possibility, that you can be capable of winning a national championship. I think that's why you go to a place like that. That's why you give up a job, maybe at a smaller school, a mid-major or a low major, where you've had tremendous success, because you want that challenge. So certainly I think that Maryland is a place where that ought to be one of your goals. But your question is, what is Maryland basketball? And that is where you get into a very interesting question. I read where Damian Evans, the AD, said that Maryland is a top 20 program. And my question would be, is it?
Right.
Is it? And my answer would be, well, no. They're a program that, every now and again, and sometimes maybe on a frequent basis, has a top 20 team. But are they a top 20 program? I don't know. Can it be a top 20 program? Well, yes, but is it? I don't think it is. And then the other thing is, everybody says, well, you ought to be successful at Maryland because you have the D.C. area where you can recruit.
Right.
Well, yeah, you do, but everybody else is recruiting in the D.C. area. And it's not like it was at one time where people are all fired up about going to school close to home. If you look around the country, the guys who stay at home are rare. The kid from Ohio State, Liddell.
Yep.
One of the big stories leading into the Maryland game was the treatment he got from the fans at Illinois, because here's an Illinois kid who elected not to go to Illinois. And I would submit to you that that's more common now than uncommon. The kid, the Branham kid from Ohio State, it's a big deal that he's from Columbus and he went to Ohio State. It's a big deal that the Blake Wesley kid from Notre Dame is a South Bend kid and he went to Notre Dame. It's rare. Just because you live or your school is in a potentially fertile recruiting area doesn't mean that you are ipso facto going to get all those recruits. It just doesn't happen anymore that way.
100%. 100%. All right, Dan, I promise this is it. I'll let you go. Hey, who's good? Who can actually – the top 6 teams in the country all lost over the weekend, right? Like, who's good? And does any of this open things up that maybe Towson could win the national championship somehow this year, Dan?
No.
Right.
Towson's not going to win the national championship.
They're a hell of a story, though, Dan. I'm telling you.
Oh, it would be
watch out.
Story.
They get in. They're really good, man. They could be a threat. They're a top 60 KenPom team. Like, they could be a threat. But who's legitimately good? Is it as insane as maybe if somebody's just parachuting in and watching college basketball this weekend, seeing all the top teams go down, is it the story that it's because this is the most parity and there could be 30 teams that could win the title this year? Or is it really just sort of one bizarre weekend where a bunch of good teams lost and it's still likely to be one of those good teams who ends up winning the title?
Well, I think it's going to be one of those good teams who ends up winning the title, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a lot of fun talking about it. I think that there are probably 20 teams out there that could do it. Let's, for example, take a team like Tennessee. Tennessee is a team. They've had some big wins. They've been blown out a couple of times, but they're a team that can grind it out, and I think you have to be able to grind it out in the NCAA tournament. So I think a team like that is certainly they wouldn't be on the top of anybody's list, but they're certainly capable. And I think there's a number of teams out there like that. And so I think it is going to be a fabulous NCAA tournament. I think it's going to be really fun because it's one of those years where we're not going in and saying, it's either going to be Duke or Gonzaga.
Right.
That's not what we have. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be one of those great years.
He is Dan Bonner. Dan, what's your schedule like this week?
Well, I've got Georgia Tech and Clemson on Wednesday, and then on Sunday I have the Missouri Valley Championship game. I'm
Arch
really
Madness.
anxious to get out there and see them. I go out there every year at this time to do that tournament, Kevin Harlan and I, and it's a lot of fun. And, there's some pretty, Loyola Chicago, who a lot of people have either on the bubble or in the tournament. They're the 4th place team in that league. So I'm looking forward to that tournament as well.
It's what an atmosphere that is. They got something special brewing out there. Dan Bonner, really appreciate it. Really an enthralling conversation. Thank you for taking the time for us as always. Hopefully we can chat again as we get into the tournament, sir.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Dan Bonner checking in with us here on GCR after he called the game yesterday. Look, I'm always going to be inclined to push back. I think there is a relevant side of what Dan Bonner is discussing, which is what the expectations are versus what Maryland is. This is what I was going back and forth with Jeff Ehrman about yesterday. I think there are a group of people that are continuing to just throw out this idea that Maryland is a top-notch basketball program. It ain't.
I don't think that they are. I think that they should be.
That's the part. 100%. Paul, I completely agree with that. I think they should be and they can be.
Mm-hmm.
But to say they are is not – what are we basing that on?
Not this year.
It's not just this year. To call yourself a top-notch program is not, they were ranked a couple years. Stop this. What have you actually accomplished internally or externally? Internally being the investment that you make in order to ensure that you're that type of program. If you say, look, the results don't show it, but we're saying internally we're willing to spend $10 million on a coach this year. I have not heard that from anyone. I know The Athletic threw out the idea that Damon Evans is willing to spend big money, but all the reporting I've done has said it ain't going to be something absurd. They're not saying, come hell or high water, we're paying the amount of money that it takes to get the guy that we want.
$10 million seems like a lot for any program.
$10 million is crazy. I'm saying that they're not spending beyond what you would think would be reasonable to make the statement, no, we're Maryland, we're players again. We're going to get the guy. We're going to allow money to be what overcomes the happiness thing. This is the... everybody said, well, why would Ed Cooley leave? He's very happy. Well, if he was offered $8 million to be a coach somewhere, you can be really happy with that amount of money, right? Like, there's an amount of happiness that can buy you. So that would be an internal way that you could show you're still that program. Internally, what we see is they still don't have a practice facility. That's the internal side. The external side of it is they've accomplished nothing. They haven't won anything. They've got one share of a conference title in the regular season in the last decade. So externally, they have nothing to show. Internally, they have nothing to show. In no world is Maryland today a significant basketball program. The statement that you made and the statement that's more relevant for everybody to make is, can they be? Absolutely they can be. You hire the right coach, given the talent base that's in the area, given the prominence of the school as a whole. It is a prominent university. There is every reason to believe that the right coach can make Maryland basketball prominent again, a significant program. But today, February 28th, February's already over. Holy crap. February 28th, is Maryland basketball significant? No. In fact, again, as I was getting into this, I should have called Jeff today. Maybe we should call Jeff. I don't want to keep bringing his name up without, having the conversation with him. I brought this up. Jeff tried to throw out this, Wall Street Journal used to do this valuation. Maybe they still do. I just couldn't find it for the last year or two. They used to do this annual valuation of every college basketball program. And in trying to make his argument about how significant he sent me one, and it showed Maryland as being the sixth most valuable program in all of college basketball. Then I looked down and said, that was from 2016. I said, Jeff, that's 6 years ago. He said, yeah, 6 years is it's a sand in an hourglass, And I'm like, I did my own research and found out that the last one I could find was 2019. They'd already dropped down to being 19th in just 3 years. They'd gone from being the sixth most valuable basketball program in the country to the 19th most valuable basketball program. And someone would say, hey, top 20 ain't bad. Well, if they dropped from 6 to 19 in 3 years, and it's 3 years since then without accomplishing anything, where are they now? Are they still in the top 30 of the most valuable basketball programs? And you're not the idea that the other one that Jeff said, well, the top 20 of 340 Division I programs. Well, your competition ain't USC Upstate. If that's what your competition is, you're screwed. You're in a really bad place. We're talking about, of the power programs, where do you find yourself? Of 60 or so power programs, at the moment, the last valuation we had them roughly at the edge of the top 20. Presuming it hasn't gotten better, and seeing as how they fell 13 spots in 3 years, let's just say they still sneak in to the top 30 at this point. That means they're merely in the top half of upper echelon programs. It's better than Boston College. It's better than Wake Forest. It's better than Washington State. But a prominent basketball program? Not today. The next coach and the administration are going to be responsible for whether or not that becomes the case again. And can it be? Yes, 100% this can become a prominent basketball program again. I absolutely believe that. But are they today? Are they a job you just leave because you've got the chance to be the Maryland coach? And there are places where I think that's the case. I 100% believe that if the Syracuse job becomes available, and I don't think they're going to fire Jim Boeheim because I don't think they would do it to him, and he certainly wants to come back, but let's just say they go into a room and say, Jim, stop, it's over. And he retires. I think there are a number of coaches around the country that say, nope, I'm out. That Syracuse job is available. I know what can be done there. I'm not sure. And maybe the two are closer than I think. Maybe it's just the Jim Boeheim factor that's elevated Syracuse, right? I mean, it's still miserably cold there and getting kids to want to come there. I mean, to do anything other than sports casting, because that's the only place you're allowed to go if you want to become a broadcaster. Very weird bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that too. Maybe I am. I think there are a lot of jobs where people would just say that I'd leave any job in order to get that. But I don't think Maryland is that. Today's show also brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel, the place to be, not only for all of the big events, and again, as we start thinking about the tournament getting underway in a couple of weeks, you are going to want to live in the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. It's that thing that people always talk about, going to Las Vegas to spend 4 days just hanging out in the casinos, you can do that right here at home. You can do that at Live Casino and Hotel on the FanDuel Sportsbook from noon to midnight beyond every day, watching, betting on basketball, and live odds make the experience so much more significant. The ability to be sitting in the casino, watch the numbers change on a game, and say, I got a funny feeling about this team coming back. I liked them beforehand. I think they got a rally in them. I just think they got off to a bad start. Those live odds suddenly flip things. Once upon a time, Morgan State had a 10-0 lead over Oklahoma in an NCAA tournament game. That's going to change live odds. And as much as I love that Morgan State team with Reggie Holmes, we all knew this was Blake Griffin in Oklahoma that we were talking about. So if you watch those live odds, suddenly it's going to impact it. An Oklahoma team that was an overwhelming favorite coming into the game suddenly becomes a lesser favorite at that point. And there's money to be made. That's the beauty of hanging out in the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. 51 self-service kiosks that are open 24/7. Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland, and the FanDuel Sportsbook. Come back in. A few things from this weekend that I want to get to. This insane suggestion. By the way, Major League Baseball players have everything going for them. We all are more inclined to be on their side until we find out they want to completely rip up the postseason with this bizarre-ass idea that they threw out there. We'll talk about that and some other stories from the weekend we haven't had a chance to get to. That's on the way. Jeremy Conn later on in the hour. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets with Glenn Clark and Paul Valley every Wednesday morning at 11:30. FanDuel Sportsbook GM Bruce Billick and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all the info you need and even to offer a few winners. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio and watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline.
Glory Days Grill's winter seasonal menu is back with comfort classics like their house-made meatloaf and short rib grilled cheese. It also features the center-cut sirloin with grilled shrimp, the char-grilled pork tenderloin, grilled meatloaf sandwich, smoky thigh wings with Alabama barbecue sauce, and a Brussels and bacon appetizer. All of these items pair well with Devil's Backbone 8-point IPA or their anniversary IPA brewed by Devil's Backbone. And try their seasonal cocktails, Blood Orange Bourbon Cider, Apple Ginger Mule, and Captain's Hot Cider. Find out more and get your order in today at glorydaysgrill.com. Great food, good sports.
It's another cold winter here in Baltimore, but this time there's no hot stove to warm you up. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and while there may be no activity in the world of baseball, I'll still be here every week with my co-host Zach Goodman to give you all the latest in the CBA negotiations as teams look to get back on the field in time for spring training. You can watch us live every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or facebook.com/PressBoxSports and listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. So tune in every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon for the latest in baseball coverage right here on the Bat Around.
We can't imagine why you'd want to, but you can watch GCR live. It's at facebook.com/PressBoxSports and try to guess whether these guys are wearing any pants.
Paul asks, do you think that Kevin Plank and Under Armour has had actually a negative effect on basketball? Money has been going into football, i.e. the state-of-the-art training facility and locker rooms named after him. But a basketball school is still looking under couch cushions to pay for a practice facility. I would disagree that it's a negative impact. That's the only part of that statement that I would disagree about because, Kevin Plank has also certainly made contributions basketball-wise at the University of Maryland, too. I guess what I would say is if you're going to be a basketball school, you would argue it would be nice if your most prominent donor cared most about basketball, right? Like that would be a good thing. And for what it's worth, the majority of them do. Most of the people that are money people, and this is the best argument for them still being a basketball school, most of the people that are most significantly involved at Maryland are still people that are basketball first. It's just that the one that's the most prominent, the most well-known, happens to be a former football player at the University of Maryland, and so it's just sort of a unique situation. I don't think it's a negative impact, but I understand what you're alluding to, that it seems as though the investment has been more significant football-wise. And I guess what we have to come back to is, as much as we want the story of college sports to be about winning, the story of college sports will always be about money. And your jobs internally are measured by how you do in terms of making money for a program. And as much as we love basketball here, the sport of football will always be a bigger opportunity-wise moneymaker than basketball will ever be. It's the nature of the beast, man. This is America, as Childish Gambino once said. It's the reality. But, yeah, it's a fair question. It's reasonable. All right, let's touch on a couple things I haven't a chance to get to from the course of the weekend. Today's show is also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today. Ghost wins, huh? Ghost wins. That's the idea. As I said, you guys think that's crazy, but wait until you find out the Game 2 of the series is going to be a soccer match. And then Game 3 is going to be a British bake-off. Now you're on board, aren't you? Now you're on board. I have no idea what in the F that is. I mean, no clue. It was first reported by Ken Rosenthal yesterday. The union proposed a, quote, ghost win, unquote, in a 12-team format and floated the same idea in a 14-team plan, sources say. In a best 2 of 3 wildcard round, the other two division winners would start with a 1-game advantage while playing the entire series at home. The league is not receptive thus far. Example, the Brewers in 2021 would have faced the Phillies in a best of 3. Under the union plan, the Brewers would have needed to win 2 games, the Phillies all 3. Without the ghost win, the only advantages for non-bye division winners in the league proposal would be choice of wildcard opponent and home field advantage.
Well, that doesn't even make any sense, because if the Phillies would need to win all 3, the Brewers would need to win 2. The Brewers would really only need to win 1, because as soon as they win 1, the Phillies are done.
What?
So you said the Brewers, in that situation in 2021, the Brewers would have needed to win 2, Phillies win 3.
Because you're already giving them 1 win.
Yeah.
Right, and it's a best of 3, and if you already have 1 win, you've got 2 chances to win 1 game, whereas they've got to win. And they don't. I guess the answer, they don't have to win 3. One team has to win 1, the other team has to win 2.
Right.
Is really the story, right? Like, they have to win both of the games they play. The other team gets 2 cracks at winning 1 game.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying too hard. We're trying too hard.
Just play baseball.
Correct. I mean, that's a different, you know what I mean? Obviously, that's more infuriating. But you got to deal with, this is when you deal with these things, right? Like, you do have to figure out, because it has to be collectively bargained, what your postseason is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And there are relevant arguments to be made about why it is the union wants the regular season to matter so much. They don't want it to be that an expanded playoffs, which is what baseball wants, because the playoff games are the ones that people actually care about and you can actually sell and you can profit off of. Unfortunately, the regular season, the nature of it being 162 games, there is no prominence to a national TV broadcast of a baseball game any longer during the regular season. Fox doesn't even do it. They give you a regional game. Like, they're not even attempting to sell a national baseball game during the course of the week. Baseball has figured out the product that we can sell nationally is the playoffs. The regular season is regional. The regular season was going to be regional. You can't fix. There's too many games. Even if you cut it back to 144 games, that's still way too many games to make any of them individual prominent broadcasts that are worth big dollars to the networks. They're worth something because the networks all have to fill, their time, right? Like, ESPN is going to want to have some baseball games to put on the air because they've got, what else are they going to put on during the course of the summer? The MLS every night? No offense to the MLS or WNBA, they need those windows to be filled by something. So they'll pay something for it, but there's a limit to what they'll pay. MLB Network doesn't even make their own broadcast. They just re-air somebody else's. what they've figured out they can profit off of is the postseason. So Major League Baseball says, we need more postseason, and you guys have to understand that because it's going to be, whatever we agree to, it's more money for everybody if we've got more postseason games to sell to these networks. They're not wrong about that.
Right.
So now the union comes back and says, okay, but the more teams you put in the postseason, the easier it is to make it. And if it's easier to make the postseason, then the teams don't feel the same need to spend money in order to make sure they get in. So now we've got to come up with some sort of way to still give a significant advantage to the teams that try the hardest in the offseason and spend the most money to be the best teams in the season. If there's no inherent advantage between being the 1 seed and being the 7 seed, why are you trying all that hard? Why are you spending a boatload of money to get in if you've got the exact same chances of getting to the World Series as the 1 seed and the 7 seed? We all know that's not inherently true, right? Like, inherently, a team that's that good is probably because they're that good. More often than not, it's because they're that good, right? But the point is not irrelevant. The point is, it shouldn't be that there are 7 teams that all have exactly the same chances once they get there, because then a bunch of teams are going to look around and say, we don't have to try to be the best team. We just have to try to be good enough. And the players want you to spend money on players to try to go be the best team. So this is crazy because what are we doing? But I get what they're trying to solve.
If they took the terminology ghost win out of that and they just said, you have to win the first game to get on even keel. If you don't, you're done. Would that change the perception of it?
It would change the perception. I mean, it's absurd to say we're going to play a best-of-3 series and only play 2 games, right? Like, it's absurd to throw that out there. But to say something like,
you've got to earn it to earn it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you. I think the first thing I would start with is the side of this that I think is I'm listening on is the side where all of the games are at home.
Mm-hmm.
Getting rid of a game altogether is the problematic part. But if you wanted to say the first round is going to be a best-of-3. So let's just live in a world where 7 teams are making the playoffs in each league, which a lot of people would already balk at, right? But we get it. They want more playoffs. So 7 teams are making it. That means 1 team is getting a wild card, getting a pass, the number 1 seed. So there's already a benefit to being the number 1 seed,
right,
which is you're getting a pass through the first round entirely. But the other 3 teams that are the other 2 division winners and the top wild card team all get to host the entirety of that 3-game series. That is a significant advantage.
Yeah.
That does say you're much better off being the 2 seed or the 3 seed than you are being the 6 seed or the 7 seed. It's not as if road teams can't go in and win 2 out of 3. Of course they can. You got the opportunity, but you got to do it on the road. You don't get even as much as 1 game at home during the course of 3 games.
I like that idea way more.
I think that alone shows a sizable advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Shows this is why you should attempt to try to be one of the best teams in baseball and not just one of the teams that gets in, because it's going to be very hard to do it. I would even be willing to go a step further than that and say make it a 5-game series. If what you're worried is that if a bad team just happens to have 2 good pitchers, or a mediocre team just happens to have 2 good pitchers, it doesn't matter where the games are, they could steal a series.
Mm-hmm.
So expand it to 5. And maybe baseball argues that's too much because you've got 1 team that's sitting and waiting, and you don't want to have them waiting for a whole week to have these series play out before they have to play again. I'd think through that. But so make it a 5-game series, and again, all 5 games at home. That part of this argument I love. I love the idea that if you're not one of the top 4 seeds, you don't get guaranteed a home game in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, the thing there is you know that the owners are probably going to be against that because there's going to be, 2 or 3 teams that don't get a home game in the first round of the playoffs, and that's less money for them.
Be better. I mean, be better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that hard.
It's easy to say that.
Go be better.
But, I mean, they're squabbling over what amounts to pennies.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and of course they're going to balk at everything. That's part of the that's part of the reason why we're here is because they're balking at everything.
I'm about to be punished, by the way, because the deal's not getting done by today.
Oh yeah, we have to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to talk about that with Drew on Wednesday. We will have to make a determination on what it is that you're going to have to do. Ooh, start sending me ideas for what Paul's going to have to do because he's going to lose our bet. Almost certainly he's going to lose
guaranteed.
our bet. Well, and as I said before, I'm still not. I don't think they're going to announce tonight unless they are drastically far apart.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they believe they're even within shouting distance, they are going to pretend like they never said what they said. They're going to say, we will continue good faith negotiations, knowing that if they could get something figured out this week, there is absolutely zero reason why they couldn't play the first game on March 31st.
Glenn, that insinuates that any of these negotiations have been in good faith.
You're not wrong about that. You're not wrong about that, Paul. If they leave tonight and they are anywhere, if they believe they're within a week of maybe coming to an agreement, I don't think they'll announce the cancellation of games yet. I think they will postpone announcing the because it's always been fraudulent. It's always been nonsense. The players were always going to fight about it. The players were never just going to get on board with making less money this season.
Right.
So if they know they're in for a fight, the players are going to want to play all 162 anyway, and you're going to have to push the season into November, then I think they're going to be more inclined to come back to the table and say, all right, we'll delay that announcement of more cancellations, and we'll wait a week until we do that. We'll give ourselves more of a week, but we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Moral of the story being, it sounds dumb. It sounds absurd. There is more when you actually sit back and try to figure out how they got to that. You get it. They're trying to solve something that makes teams want to go spend money and be one of the top teams in the league. I would never have it involve a ghost win, and I would really never have it involve one team needs to win X number of games, the other team needs to win a different number of games. In American sports, we don't do that. It's what makes it so easy. Someone can tune in for baseball starting the postseason that hasn't paid attention all year long and be into it because it's not that hard to figure it out. It's a best of blank series. This team is up 2-1, which is probably the reason why they're throwing in the ghost win, because they want to continue to make that part easy. They want somebody to turn on the game and see Dodgers lead series 1-0 up in the top corner, best of 3, and figure out what it is they need to do in order to get there. They want to continue to make it as easy as possible in that way. I'm just out. I'm out on that part of it.
You just play the game. If you do it that way, you don't have UMBC beating Virginia.
Well, but that would be a different scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like this team still has the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Like you still have the opportunity. In baseball,
But you're in a significant hole against one of the best teams in baseball.
The other issue is there's two things they're up against. The winner-take-all one-game playoff is the best drama you get in all of baseball. The wild card game has produced the best baseball product that we have seen since its introduction. It's unbelievable.
Unless you're on the losing team side.
It's not fair in any way.
Right.
But how do you measure fairness versus product? We want everything to be fair, right? Inherently, we want a fair way to determine a champion. But if you're baseball and you've gotten a great product out of it, do you want to get away from that? I don't know. It's the tricky part about this entire equation. The product has been unbelievable with these one-game playoffs. It's so good.
That's why everybody wants a game 163. They
That's
want everything
exactly
coming
right.
down to
you want
a
there
playing
to be
game.
one game with you got to throw the kitchen sink at it to try to win the game. You got to have all of your starting pitchers pitch in order to. You want the. It's so captivating. It's gripping. Is it fair? No, it's probably not fair. But it's so good. It's so good. And so we want it because of that. Apparently the Colts are going to make a proposal to fix the overtime thing. Good. I am not, and all the reporting suggested there, of course, is not overwhelming momentum to think that it's going to happen. I mean, I get that. The NFL has never thought this was actually a problem, so why do they suddenly think it's a problem? I wish this would have happened 3 times in the postseason. I wish it would have been so overwhelming they were forced to deal with it, but they were already able to forget about it just 2 weeks later. The Bills-Chiefs thing is the thing that we'll all remember from this past postseason, despite the fact that neither team played in the Super Bowl. It needs to be fixed. It is needed to be fixed. It is an embarrassment for the entirety of the NFL, and it probably won't be. I mean, if I had to bet, they'll just keep it status quo. I mean, they tried insane things in order to fix the debacle at the end of the Saints Rams game from a few years ago, and they eventually just said, we stopped caring. If it happens again, it happens again. So be it. We're the NFL. Who gives a rat's ass? We're bigger than life. Who cares? This needs to be fixed.
I still can't believe it's as difficult. People are making it as difficult as they are. It's a simple thing.
It's insane. I mean, it's insane how difficult people are trying to make it seem like this is. And by the way, this goes back to the fair. It not only is it fair, it also improves the product. This is what makes it so bonkers. It's a better product. People are like, we don't want the games to go on forever. Says who? You think that I've said this a billion times. If you have watched the entirety of an NFL game and it is captivating and in overtime, are you suddenly tuning out because you've decided, well, it reached the 3 hour and 30-minute mark. I'm done. Nonsense. Get the F out of here with that. Fix it. I'm glad the Colts are introducing something. I hope that the other teams will introduce something. I also worry that there will be multiple introductions made. Remember, the Ravens threw out that utterly absurd spot and choose thing that the NFL tried in the Pro Bowl, which solves the problem in absolutely no way. Insanity. So I do worry that part of the problem will be there will be so many suggestions made that not one of them will be coalesced around, and because of that, it's just not going to get fixed. And the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly, I don't really have much Lord knows I am not an analyst when it comes to war. I'm not the right person to talk about it. I think everybody on the planet that has a right mind is horrified by what's going on right now in Ukraine and continues to think about them and know that they're in the right. I mean, I had to sit down with my kids this weekend and talk about the evil man that is in charge in Russia and the awful, awful things that he's doing. The news came out this weekend that FIFA will continue to allow Russia to participate in World Cup qualifying. They will not be allowed to play the national anthem. They will not be allowed to be referred to as Russia, much like they did in the Olympics. But they will continue to allow the players. And the argument is, well, it's not the players on the team's fault that the evil dictator has gone to war. And there's something to be said for it. The follow-up response to that was from some of the countries that are slated to face Russia that said, we're not going on the pitch with them. We're not doing that. No chance. And I get that too. I completely understand it. And sometimes there has to be collateral damage. I get it. I want everything to be fair in the world. And it's not necessarily the fault of the players that are on this Russian soccer team that they live in a country that has an evil, vile dictator that makes these decisions. But unfortunately, they might have to be collateral damage. It might have to be that for the good of the world, we say sorry. It sucks. It sucks. No, you want to play. No, you want to compete. No, all those things. But we have to take a stand about something. And all of these other teams that rightfully don't want to participate in a soccer match against Russia right now, and you can completely understand that, we're going to listen and support that. Sometimes there has to be collateral damage. It's about as heavy as I'm going to get. I'm not going to go too much further in that because I am not qualified in any way to discuss any of the rest of the topic, but I do think that I side with the rest of the European countries that have said we don't want to do this. We are not going to participate. I will not take the pitch against this Russian team. I don't care if you say we're not playing the anthem and we're not using the colors. I don't care what you say. I'm not taking the pitch. I'd side with them, and if I was FIFA, I'd say you're out.
I did just see something that said 54 minutes ago that FIFA has suspended Russia from international competition.
Oh, has that changed this morning?
Yeah,
okay.
I saw that. That's why I gave you a little head shake, because I saw it on your timeline earlier today.
You saw it on our timeline? All right, well, if that's changed, that's good news. FIFA are set to suspend Russia's national team from. Okay, all right, yeah, it looks like that It looks like that has changed this morning, so that is good news. Over the weekend, that was the plan. It does look like that's changed. All right. Well, if that's the case, I mean, I'm only seeing it from one source, and I don't know this source. This is
I saw it
someone
from
Ocean Shine. I don't know who that is. But I'll try to get more on that here
I
before
see
the
it
end
from
of the show.
CBS Sports.
Okay. I mean, they certainly, that would seem to be significant. All right. Very good. Much better thought process than what they originally had planned, and that's where pushback from the rest of the players in the world turned out to be a very good thing. All right, it's Monday. That means we chat with Jeremy Conn. We do it every Monday, of course, the host of the Big Bag Morning Show on 105.7 The Fan. You see his picks every day at PressBoxOnline.com. I promise we are not qualified to discuss this topic, so we're going to talk about other things. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I also am involved with this. I'm doing well. I will no longer use Zangief when I play Street Fighter.
There you go. Look at you doing your part. Look at you.
Just because you are a bad guy does not mean you are a bad guy. So.
The hero.
Not to make light of the situation at all.
No. The hero. You are truly the hero that we need. And you know what? While we're at it, I'm not gonna watch Rocky IV until this is over either. I want to make that promise.
But we ended the Cold War.
That's true. We did. We said, oh God, the man saved the world. Rocky Balboa.
If I can change and you can change,
and we all can.
Everybody can change.
100%. What's going on with you, dude? Everything good?
Yeah. So things have been good. Had some interesting weeks in the gambling streets, if you will. I had a really bad beat this weekend, which everybody let me know.
Were you on the Arkansas thing this weekend?
Arkansas was my top play on Saturday.
Yeah.
And it was a bad beat for a couple different reasons. Like the game was close, so I'm not upset by how it finishes. But when you watch it in real time and realize that they were going to run out the clock and the whistle blew, then they research it, and then a kid goes to the foul line to shoot two, which could have at worst made it a push if you had it at 3. If you had it at 2.5, you're guaranteed to win. If he hits both of them, misses the first, hits the second, pass it in, don't want to foul, don't want to get near somebody, guy chucks up a three-pointer that banks off and goes in.
Unreal.
And Kentucky covers by a half. So,
Unreal.
Yeah.
What
Kentucky, you were happy. If you had Arkansas, you were me.
Yeah.
You hate life.
Do you know your all-time worst? So everybody knows, of course, Van Pelt has been famous for the bad beats thing. Do you have one, like the story of the Belk Bowl? Do you have one that will stay with you eternally? That there will never be able to be a day where you shake that particular beat?
I have two.
Okay.
That stand out. So one you'll understand. One game you'll remember because it's one of the biggest comebacks in Super Bowl history. But so I had Georgetown minus. This was a long time ago. We're talking like 2005, 2006. I had Georgetown minus. I think it was like 16.5, and they were covering by 18, and a guy threw up a three-quarter court shot, and it went in, and it covered the spread. And I don't remember who they were playing. So they end up winning by and it's no harm, no foul to most people watching the game.
Of course not.
They end up winning by 14 or 15, whatever the number was. But I know the three-quarter court shot that went in covered the spread, and they counted it. But the one that stands out to me most is the 28-3 Patriots comeback on the Falcons because of how easily that could have ended. So think about you're winning a ton of money. It's almost like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You're down to that $1 million case, and you got 5 other cases to choose between. So I was hitting every single prop bet. I was winning the game. I had Atlanta in the under. I'm locked in.
Oh, you meant deal or no deal. I was trying to figure out what I swear to God, when you said Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
What did I say? Oh, none of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
I'm like, what are the cases and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? What are you talking about? I figured it out.
I mixed up my shows, but I did not mix up this game because I lost. I was winning a small fortune, and then it went from winning a small fortune in 15 minutes to losing it. Losing everything because I had this stuff like James White under receptions, under yardage. There was just a lot that I really liked in the game, and I didn't think they were going to go to James White because of game flow and this and that he wouldn't play a part in it. And, of course, he got hot in the fourth quarter, and they just rolled him. He scored a touchdown, and I had him not scoring a touchdown. Just everything that could go wrong. I had Tom Brady under passing yards. Everything was hitting, and it was a mortal lock. But more importantly, I had a ton on the game. And I had the under and the Falcons parlayed, and both of those blew up. So it was one of those days where I was so happy at the end of the third quarter and so sad when the game ended. It just
Yep, that is an eternal bad beat. You're 100% right about it. That's an eternal bad beat.
Well,
All
even in the end, with them throwing the football, if Matt Ryan doesn't take a sack, they kick a field goal and they win the game.
100%. 100%. It's absolute insanity the way that went. All right, let me cover this with you. So we were just talking about this a second ago. Everybody's making fun of the baseball players for this ghost win idea, and I get it. It's absurd. But I also get what it is they're trying to say. They want there to be an advantage to trying to be one of the best teams in baseball because it means that those teams will try to spend more money on players in the offseason, right? If the team if you go 7 teams in the playoffs in each league and the 7th team has roughly the exact same chance of winning as the first team does, then they're afraid that owners will say, well, we don't need to spend all that much money because we don't have to be the best team. We just have to be good and then get in and have a chance. They want there to be an inherent advantage to being the best team or one of the best teams in the league because they think that's going to drive teams to spend more money, right? So let's accept that premise for what it is. We all seem to agree that the idea of a ghost win is absurd. I mean, it's laughable how bad that is. I suggest if you're going to do a best of 3, right? If you're going to put 7 teams in the first series is going to be a best of 3, just say that the other top 4 seeds, the 2, 3, the C3, and the 4 seed, get to host the entirety of the series, right?
That makes the most sense to me.
Is that where you are? Okay.
Yeah, and it's funny, like not to just totally ruin the question that you were about to ask, but like I can see where you're going, and my mind moves the same way yours does in this fashion, where it's like that makes the most sense. This ghost win thing is nonsensical, and trying to set this up. And I understand what they're trying to do, but I just think it's like the competition committee in football. I think they're overthinking things too much. Just like, it's baseball. We know what it is. You don't think it's fair. They need to come to an agreement on what the playoff format's going to be, how many teams get in, all of that. And that seems like the minutia to me compared to some of the other stuff, the money and the financial stuff, where the Players Association is like, okay, this is what we want. And then, of course, ownership says this is what we want. And then they're incrementally moving $1 million. Doesn't make any sense to me. But this thing, it seems like a no-brainer. But if you're going to do it in that format, then why not just have them play all the games at home? That is a distinct advantage.
Correct. That would make you say we need to try to be. And again, we all know, like if the team that's a lower seed happens to have 2 really good pitchers, they could win the series. You know what I mean? Like it's not as if it can't happen. It's still an opportunity. But I do think it covers the side of it where there is a serious advantage to trying to go and be really good and spending real money and competing and knowing that it's not just as simple as if you get in, you have as good a chance as anyone.
Yeah. And it's been a big problem in baseball. Like, if you look at some of the other sports, Glenn, like the NBA, we've seen other teams get in and make a run. We've actually seen teams that we haven't seen win in a long time. Not that they're not power teams now like Milwaukee, but you're a Suns fan. I don't think anybody was predicting the Suns to make that run last year that they did, and I know there were some extenuating circumstances with injuries, but they've showed you that they're a real legit team as they have the best record in basketball
starting to get nervous about it. They lost the Jazz yesterday. They lost 2 straight without Chris Paul. I'm starting to get a little
figuring
nervous.
it out without Chris Paul. Devin Booker takes on a brand new role, and everybody's role kind of changes. So as they beat they beat one team they're expected to beat. They lose to a team they shouldn't have. And then, of course, last night's game was a tough one.
The Jazz are good.
Jazz,
right?
They're a good team, and they're finally healthy again.
By the way, how bad are the Lakers? Holy F, man.
Well, I talked about this. That was my top play yesterday, the Pelicans. And I said, why are people still betting on the Lakers? Like, they haven't been watching them. Like, oh, my God, they're the Lakers. They're going to figure it out and flip on a switch. And, they're only a 1.5-point favorite of the Pelicans. The Pelicans traded for C.J. McCollum. They made a great trade and bettered their team. They're a better team than the Lakers, whether people want to hear it or not. But that's kind of the point, though, that where it's a little bit more wide open in the other sports. And I forget who it was that just did the article where they were talking about, like, realistically, like, who has a chance outside of the big dogs in baseball? Like, do you have a chance to make it? Like, the Rays went to the World Series 2 separate times in the past, 15 years now, 12 years, whatever. But do we really think that they're going to be mainstays to making that run? Because everything has to go perfect for them. Like, they haven't missed on a trade. For the most part, they've stayed relatively healthy. They've made great moves in picking up vets that don't have huge contracts, finding the perfect fit. At some point, one of them blows up in their face, and they're right back behind the 8 ball, in my opinion. I think the Giants fall off this year. Some of these teams that we expected, like, oh, my God, I can't believe they're in it. This is a great story. The Brewers. teams that haven't been there before, at least in a long time. I feel like in baseball, we always know who's going to be there and make that run. They just have a stranglehold over the division with no salary cap. It's going to be the same thing. They really have to have an off year for them to not be in the playoffs.
You're right about that. That is true. And I guess what I would say is I still get the concept, though. Like, I still don't think this is – I still think that there is a relevant argument for the players to say, but we want more teams to be trying, right? We want to be incentivized for more teams to try to be like the Padres a couple years ago or the Blue Jays or the Rangers this offseason. We want there to be more teams to feel incentivized to really go for it instead of just sitting back and saying, we'll take our chances. You're not wrong that, like, the teams that have just sat back and took their chances probably aren't going to be the teams that win the World Series anyway, for the most part, right? Like, that's true. But I still think it's to try to further incentivize more teams to push to be that team
so doesn't the
that
lottery
becomes the big dog.
make more sense than anything then, as far as like the draft picks
Oh,
go? And again,
right.
you're not going to usually get immediate drawback from the draft picks. In baseball, we know it takes. Look, we're still waiting on year 3 now with Adley Rutschman, and some of the expectations. Some of the things I heard is that he might be starting at catcher on opening day, to the shock of many. But we'll see how it plays out. But if you change up the lottery, even if you gave everybody the same amount of ping pong balls, if we did it that way, 1 through 12 or 1 through whatever,
right.
What you're going to have teams doing is, if you get to that 12 or 13 mark, is intentionally try to lose to get into the lottery.
Right, into the lot. Yep. 100%.
But I don't know what the correct answer is, but I think there has to be some sort of way to do that. The correct answer is put a salary cap in baseball. We don't have that issue.
Well, and more specifically, a salary floor too, right? I mean, that's the
both
part.
of those.
That's the part that we don't talk about nearly as much, which is when people throw out salary cap as being problematic. Well, if it comes along with a salary floor, then we'll talk, right? And I get it. The Major League Baseball Players Union has stayed this powerful because they've stayed this powerful, right? Like, they are not just going to suddenly agree to something. But if they could be guaranteed X amount of dollars every year, no matter what, I mean, I think at that point it might be worth considering there being a salary cap as well. But I don't think it's coming. I don't think it's coming this week. I don't think that's happening.
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't think
so,
that's
Glenn,
happening.
let me do a little play-by-play here and give you. Like, I always like to tell you the more interesting.
Oh
things
yes,
I see.
please.
So,
Yeah.
One of my favorite things back in the day is my buddy owned a liquor store, and I would go in and I would literally drink behind the counter with him. We'd sip on Jameson, and we'd people watch, and we'd just hang out, and it was just cool, kind of a cool, fun way. You'd see the little old ladies that sneak a bottle of vodka into their purse. And,
Yep.
It's more fun when we do it early in the day, like 11 a.m., and you're watching people go to work. And seeing how the whole thing works out for him and I just saw a guy who looked like he won the lottery, but he bought himself a tall boy and I think a shot, and he was just getting into his car and he was happier than, like, I saw him get out of his car and he wasn't smiling. And then when he got that tall boy and he got his shot, whatever it was, as he was holding it in his black bag walking out, you could just see how excited he was. And I felt good for him because he was looking forward to that part of his day, which he's probably cracking it open as he's driving down Bel Air Road right now.
I love that.
But he looked happy to have it.
That's, you know what? I can feel that joy. I can absolutely 100% feel the joy that
It's the
you're.
small wins in life.
100%, man. It's that thing. Jeremy Conn is with us. Hey, I was doing this with Forrester the other day. I want to pose it to you. So I got McCartney tickets, right? They cost me for 2 tickets, not on the field, but like right off of the field, down the first baseline, section 11. For 2 tickets, it cost me $513.
Okay.
What is the most money you spent for an event, an experience, and at what point do you start to worry about whether or not the experience can match what you had to spend, like that it becomes impossible, that this math can't work out, there's no way that this event or this experience can be as good as what it is that I had to pay in order to experience it?
So I'm going to give you a couple things here. I'm going to make a statement that I don't want it to get twisted because we all care about money, but I don't care about money. Like my wife is the saver in our family. If you learn about our relationship, like I give her the money I make. I have enough money for me to play with my daily fantasy, my gambling, any other sorts of issues I may have. But basically I'm a grown child and my wife is the adult in our relationship. So when
by the way, I'm
buying,
sure everybody is really surprised to hear that. I'm sure they're like, "You, Jeremy Conn, really? No."
My wife yelled at me the other day for something. She was asking about taxes. Okay, so she said, "Where are your taxes from last year?"
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. She's like, "Well, why aren't you saving these things?" I said, "I don't know."
Right.
And she goes, "Well, you should have it because a grown, responsible adult would have it."
She's
She's
not wrong.
I didn't have it.
Yeah.
Before, she's not. You knew I didn't have it before you asked that question. She goes,
Right.
"Yeah." And I said, "So why do you expect more from me if you know to expect less?"
It's a great point, right? Like you it's not like you just met me yesterday. Like we've been doing this for some time.
I'm very aloof. Like I don't like I give money away left and right.
I know that's
like,
true. Yes.
Whatever hits me at the moment. So I would spend like if I really wanted to go to, I said Mumford and Sons my favorite band.
Yep.
If somebody offered me front row seats and said, "Hey, I need you to pay $1,000, $2,000 for them," and I really wanted to go and I could work it out, I would pay it. Okay, so like I don't have a problem with that at all. But the one thing that I brought up was my when the Avett brothers came to Camden Yards, I spent over $1,300 on tickets for my friends.
Because this was your birthday. You wanted to make an event out of it.
It was my birthday. Some of them paid me back. Some of them didn't. But it's not neither here nor there.
Right.
So, and I don't care about those.
And if you're listening, Steve, he remembers. Just file that away. He remembers.
But so we're sitting right behind the Orioles dugout. The stage was set up at second base, so you really couldn't have been much closer than where we were. I was all set to see one of my favorite bands perform at my favorite stadium in the entire world. And my wife tied one on and got too drunk.
Yep.
And we left before the concert even started.
Yep.
So I tell my wife when I show her my shirt that I got for $35 from David Brothers across the front. This was a $1,335 shirt.
Oh man. Oh.
The most expensive piece of clothing.
By the way, I would think that would be what I would say when she brings up your tax situation. I think I would be like, "Hey, remember that time we went to that game that you cost me a $1,300 event? Maybe we don't yell about the taxes so much, huh?"
Well, and I might need that today because I'm about to do this a second time where the guy told me I was going to be in trouble with my wife. So my shovel this morning went to my wife, who is a nurse that works overnight. It's a shovel of wisdom, so something goofy that happens.
Yeah.
So my wife, because she works at night, anytime she pees, she never flushes the toilet because she doesn't want to wake me up because our schedules are
very different. You got to be up at 2 in the morning.
So it turned into a pattern where she doesn't, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. That whole
Okay. Yep.
So yesterday I come home from doing some work stuff, and she was going to brunch with her family. And as I walk in, she got in the shower, ran out, whatever. She was in a rush. And as I come in to use the bathroom, I look down, and apparently someone's brown did not get flushed down.
Oh no! Well, wait a second. Girls don't poop, Jeremy. So that's not your wife.
That's what I thought. So I want to know who broke into my house.
Right, and pooped. Exactly
right. My wife was so embarrassed, and now she's going to be even more embarrassed because I told the story on the air. But,
Twice
now. Okay, so I have a problem right now in that I did not wear my wedding ring for years because after we got married, I had fallen back to like 2002 Glenn levels of being out of shape because I was at my peak of drinking and carrying on. So in the years after we got married and when the kids came along and I said, "Oh, right, I don't want to die. Like I need to be around to help these guys out for a little while," and got myself back into shape. My ring was too big for my finger, right? Like it was just so I couldn't wear it. And then a pandemic hit and I never had the time to take it back to get it resized, right? Like it took years. She would harp about it. She would lose her mind about it. I finally got it done. I literally just got my ring back last Friday. And now I get very nervous when I'm in the shower about the ring coming off because it still feels loose. Like it still feels like it's... So I take the ring off when I get in the shower. And last night, apparently the second time in a week that I forgot to put the ring back on when I get out of the shower. And she loses her mind. As if it's me announcing I don't want to be married. Like, this is how separated from reality she is. Like, the reality is I'm very happily married. Everyone knows. I love my wife. We've got these two wonderful kids. There's a reality because I have twice forgotten to put my ring back on when I got in the shower. she is convinced that it means that I hate her, that I don't want to be married, and that I'm going to run around and try to find some young Latino woman to build a new life with, or something along those lines.
Is that who you would build your new life with? Was a young Latino?
I don't know who. If I had my choice,
I want to check your search history.
So my wife.
No, you know what? Take that. You don't want to check my search history, Jeremy.
My wife is the one that leaves her thousands upon thousands of dollars wedding ring and engagement ring in the soap dish next to the sink, literally every day. But mine, that's less than $1,000. If I take it off and leave it on the counter, she's like, "Babe, I found your wedding ring."
You're like, hey, yeah, I found yours too. Right?
Yeah, yours is in that soap dish every day.
Look, I've always been uncomfortable with the idea of it. When we got married, I said, look, I will tattoo "I'm married" on my hand. That to me is more comfortable than the. I've just never worn a ring in my life. It's weird to me, and getting used to it again after not wearing it for 3 years is very weird to me. Like it's uncomfortable. It's odd.
I told you what happened with me, right? Because I wore my wedding ring so much, like I literally never took it off. I was playing flag football, and we were in our championship game, and someone tipped a pass, and it hit me right on my ring finger, and it popped my knuckle out of socket to where my finger was hanging down, like beneath my palm. As I'm shaking my hand, I looked down and went, "Oh my God!" And I immediately popped it back in the socket. And one of the guys on my team goes, "That's not your finger with the ring on it, is it? You're going to want to get that off now because it's going to swell up."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Great idea." So I go to take it off, and I can't get the ring off.
Yeah.
So I finished the football game, and we're
of
trying
course.
to get the ring off.
Priorities. Let's be fair.
Yeah. Well, it was a championship. We ended up losing the game, too, which makes this even worse. So I ran down to like a Walgreens, Rite Aid, whatever, and got dental floss, and we did that dental floss trick, which I think I've told you about. It's one of the more excruciating pains I've been through. So you slide the dental floss through the ring, and you wrap your finger up like a mummy, and you slowly unwrap it from the other side, and it literally feels like they're pulling your finger off.
Oh my God!
Every single time you go to unwrap it, like it's excruciating pain for anyone that's had to do it. So I get my ring off, and then now my knuckle is so distorted, even when the swelling goes down, that ring no longer fits. So for about 2 years, I just didn't wear a ring.
Right.
And then my wife was like, so for Christmas 2 years ago, she got me rubber wedding bands so that I could they fit over my finger because my ring fingers, the knuckles, like I said, it's distorted. So now I wear a rubber ring, and I have about 8 of them. But once this one breaks, I'll just put on another one.
No, it's a real shame about your finger in that lawnmower accident back in the day. Just really.
Yeah. Oh no, that wasn't me. That was some other.
That was somebody else. I forgot about
that.
Oh my God.
Nothing like taking shots.
Dude, we were at the Super Bowl one year, and I think it was like Maurice Jones-Drew, like could not stop. Like every 20 seconds was like, dude, we got to talk about your finger. It was so uncomfortable. Oh, it was so uncomfortable for everybody.
Well, thanks, MJD.
All right. Hey, before I let you go, you want to talk about Radiothon from this past week? I know how much it means to you and everybody over there. And
you know what's super cool about this, and not that I'm gonna sit here and take my extra hand out and pat myself on the back or anything like that, but like being a part of it means a lot, and seeing that people come together, and like I know a lot of people, we love to see the donations of $1,000, $500, but you can tell when somebody's like, hey, here's $11.37, or here's $10. That's what they have to give, and like all of that adds up. And we raised over 1.3 million, and it was more than we raised last year. And from what I was told, and if the information is incorrect, I got it secondhand. Out of all the radiothons across the country, we were the only one that made more money than we did last year so far, and I think there are more coming up. So it was really cool to be a part of it. And then the other thing that I started to think about is we did some different fundraisers for Mo. We did the talking bobbleheads. And that money's been donated. Red Acre Farms, Red Acre Hydroponics on the Eastern Shore. They're great people. If you're ever down that way, go check it out. But they did a farm to table dinner, and they raised a ton of money, and everyone that worked there donated all the money they made back. So everybody worked for free. And I think those numbers really helped put us over the top from last year's goal. So it just shows like some of the work we were doing in, I hate saying the off season for Radiothon,
right?
But beforehand helped get us over that number. And there's just like so many people to thank. And look, I truly believe, like I love being a goofball. I love gambling. I love talking about sports, all these things. But the one thing in my life that's more important than any of that other stuff, is leaving the world in a better place than I found it. Whether that's changing one life, 100 lives, 1,000 lives, whatever I can do in that period of time. I've always believed in that. And to be a part of this, I told him, I said, I hope you ask me to come back every year because I'll gladly donate my time and do it. And I'm really looking forward to doing it down at the Children's Center and seeing all the kids and meeting them for the first time instead of just talking to them over Zoom or even, hearing a recorded interview with them. But it's really cool to see everybody come together.
Hopefully that'll be the case in the coming years. And it's an incredible thing that you guys do for the Johns Hopkins Children's Center. I know how much it means to you, and it was awesome to see Sanzi get to be a part of the big reveal on Friday. I mean, that's the type of stuff that gives its chills, Like it's
what's the longest show you've ever done, Glenn?
That's a great question, man. Probably the longest show I've ever done. I did a draft day that I think was like 8 hours. Now, but it wasn't just me, right? Like it was 4 of us, and we were all in different. This is in Arizona when the draft was on Saturday alone, right? Like when they did that, I think we did 12 to 8, or I guess whatever it would have been, Pacific time. That we were doing that. That's probably the longest show I've ever done. But I had the ability, if I wanted to, like step aside for 30 minutes and let somebody else do it. So I don't know. I don't know what the number would actually be of like me hard in front of a microphone. How long? You know what? No, I was doing the week of the Ravens were in the Super Bowl in New Orleans. I was hosting every day 12 to we basically made it 12 to 8 at that point. So yeah, I've done that. I've done an 8-hour show before.
Yeah, I did almost 24 hours on that Thursday and Friday. So 24. It wasn't exactly 20. It was like 22 hours of radio on Thursday and Friday in a 48-hour span. But still, the longest show I did, and if you remember, I came in to do the Terps pregame years ago.
Okay.
When they played Virginia Tech, and
the game that never happened. Right. Yeah.
Well, it did happen.
Right, but it didn't happen. Oh, it was the water main break, right?
Yeah. So a beer truck hit a water main, so the Terps game got pushed back from, I want to say it was supposed to be at 2 to like 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So our station had no programming schedule.
And they couldn't just turn it over to a network? There was no
none. They had no commercials, no programming, no nothing. I don't know why it was set up that way.
Oh my.
So I ended up doing an hour of radio, supposed to go into Terps pregame, and then the game got postponed, and then I'm calling saying, what do I do? They're like, you have to stay on the air.
Oh.
They left me on the air the entire day from noon till 9 o'clock until the game started with no commercials. We were running PSAs. I never heard so much about tsunamis in my life.
Right.
And luckily people were calling in because we didn't have anything. You know it. You plan out your show. You prep it out.
You're on the air. You don't have the ability to book guests while you're hosting.
Yeah, so Bruce Cunningham randomly called in because he heard what I was going through, and a handful of other people were generous enough. So then I have to come back and do post game. The game went to double overtime.
Right.
So I didn't even get home until almost 1:30 at night.
Oh my God.
It was the longest day of my life, and I was so happy because my old PD was he was so thankful that I did it that he said, "Thanks."
Yep. that sounds exactly right. Oh my God, does that sound? Wow, boy. Well,
Nada, can we give you a day off? Can we throw you some gift cards to this place?
No,
can we do this or that?
Just thanks. Thanks. That's it.
Great.
Nothing more than that. That's 100%. And I know exactly who you're talking about. That sounds exactly right. That sounds 100% accurate. What's coming up on the Big Bad Morning Show this week?
So I'm actually we're gonna have I guess it's gonna be a mixed bag as we lead into the combine with the NFL draft is gonna be approaching. But I'm on tomorrow and Friday. I'm off Wednesday and Thursday. I think Rob's off Friday, so you get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But I mean, we'll continue talking about what's going on with Major League Baseball and seeing if these guys can figure it out and get out of their own way.
Well, I don't have a great feeling about it. Don't have a great feeling about it. At Jeremy Conn 1057 on Twitter is how you find him. Of course, his picks every day at PressBoxOnline.com. Jeremy, love you, brother. Appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Jeremy Conn 1057 The Fan, the Big Bad Morning Show, hopping on with us here on GCR. I'm reading it from Yahoo Sports. FIFA is in, quote, advanced discussions, unquote, to suspend the Russian national team from international competitions, including the World Cup, following the invasion of Ukraine. A source with knowledge of the talks told AFP on Monday. I don't know who AFP is, but I believe it's a foreign version of the Associated Press. So I do think that's reputable, and I do think that's legitimate, and, again, speaks to the folks that stood up after FIFA's initial ruling and said, we ain't playing them. Not happening. No. And forced the issue. Because, yes, to John, your point, which was, this is what FIFA does. FIFA being FIFA, they're a disgrace. Well, that's what they wanted to do. And it required the rest of the sport standing up and saying no, which maybe should have happened when they decided to put a World Cup in Qatar, too. Maybe there should have been more of a response like this, but it is what it is. This only occurs because the people within the sport, the actual players in Europe, all got together during the course of the day yesterday and said, no effing chance. You want to let them play? You're losing us. And again, I'm not blaming the players on the Russian soccer team for what's happening right now. And in a way, I don't feel sorry for them, but I certainly feel empathy towards them. I don't know how every person, and I think we've seen the protests. I think there are plenty of people within that country that find this to be vile and are horrified by what it is that their government is doing. So I feel empathy for the Russian soccer players that have nothing to do with this. And many, and I don't know because I don't follow them on Twitter, might have, some of them, it's very difficult within Russia. There's an amount of fear that you don't speak out against the government because you could be killed. Your family could be killed. So I don't know if any of them have spoken out. Majority of Russian athletes that have said anything have simply said, please no more war. Please, we want peace. It's a way of like saying something without going after Putin, without going after the government itself. Like you can just say something. We saw Andrei Rublev, the tennis player, do that over the weekend. Alexander Ovechkin said it at a press conference last week. We don't want retaliation, so we're not going to come after the leaders of the country, but we want to say something, so we're just going to choose to say, please, no war, please, peace, something along those lines. And you get it. You understand, like, there is great fear in condemning these actions internally because it's clear that this vile, evil dictator who leads your country is willing to murder anyone. So I get it. I certainly don't hold it against Alex Ovechkin. A lot of people are going back and killing Alex Ovechkin because he has in the past has shown support for Vladimir Putin. I get it, and I wish that prominent people were in a more comfortable place in order to stand up. But I also think we need to be willing to understand the difficulty of that. Your family is still within that country. It's a very difficult thing to do. You don't want to see terrible things happen to them. And if you use your platform and you are as prominent as Alex Ovechkin in doing it, it's very clear you could be putting your family in danger for doing such a thing. So I understand why we want that, but I think we come from that from an American perspective, which is that we don't necessarily fear retaliation. Right. If we stand up and say something, whereas clearly in that country there is great fear of retaliation if you don't. And it's not dissimilar to the situation in Turkey. It's not dissimilar to situations that we've seen over the years in other countries. It's a reminder that for all of our faults, and we have a great number, there are so many warts in this country. It's a reminder of why we are fortunate to live in this country. But I just don't think it's necessarily fair for people to try to get after Alex Ovechkin. I think you need to be taking a more broad look at the entirety of that situation when you talk about it. And again, good thing that FIFA is reversing course and changing their mind and saying, nope, we hear you. We're not going to do this. All right. Today's show is brought to you by the Stan the Fan Variety Hour, which continues tonight. Every Monday, Stan and Ross are talking baseball with great guests. Stan did 3 shows last week. Look at how hard Stan's working for you. For you. He's laying his blood, his sweat, his tears on the line for you. So if you missed any of the shows last week, Mike Torres, Al Hutchinson from Visit Baltimore, Don Marcus, you can find them all by going to the videos tab at PressBoxOnline.com or by going to Facebook.com/PressBoxSports and clicking on video. Great shows every week. Stan and Ross talking baseball on Monday. Stan and Gary Stein talking to a different newsmaker on Thursdays. Appreciate all the hard work that Stan the Fan has been putting in. When we come back in, we'll get a tidbit and a tubular to wind down for a Monday edition of the show. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The newest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Maryland men's basketball's 2002 NCAA Tournament Championship, as Gary Williams reflects on how the program rose from the ashes of NCAA sanctions to the pinnacle of the sport, and why his perspective of the title run has changed now 2 decades later. Plus, Juan Dixon, Lonny Baxter, and the rest of the team relive the moments that ultimately led them to cutting down the nets in Atlanta. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farms stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The biggest pro wrestling stars today and all time all have one thing in common. You've heard them on Jobbing Out.
Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
The great Kurt Angle.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Matt Riddle.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man.
The champ, Drew McIntyre.
Oh, thank you for having me.
The great Ron Simmons.
Damn.
Keith Lee.
Appreciate you guys having me, man.
Bill Goldberg.
My pleasure.
Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mick Foley is with us.
This is the greatest name for a wrestling show I've ever heard.
MJF.
I'm glad you're happy I'm on this show because I'm freaking miserable.
Le
champion.
Chris Jericho.
Le champion.
AJ, Aaron, Brandon, and Glenn are talking pro wrestling every week on Jobbing Out. Find it at PressBoxOnline.com/radio, iTunes, and SoundCloud.
Stay tuned. Your chance to win $1 million is coming up. Probably not from us. You're listening to Glenn Clark Radio.
All right, winding down for a Monday edition of the program. Let's go ahead and get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Of course, you know, that's my place. That's my spot. FanDuel Sportsbook, 51 self-service kiosks, and the personal betting windows. The kiosks open 24/7, so whatever it is that you're betting, whatever it is, you're betting soccer matches that start at 7 in the morning, no problem. You can bet at the 51 self-service kiosks right there in the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. They've got you covered, whatever it is that you're into. You're betting overnight, something late night happening on the other side of the world. You can bet from those 51 self-service kiosks. Plus, if you sign up for Live Rewards, you can still earn your share of $10,000 cash. I got to get in the money machine. I want to do that so badly. You got to sign up by March 31st because the cash drawings are on April 1st. Live Rewards members, new Live Rewards members, that is, also can receive up to $20 in free play just by signing up.
All right, in yesterday's decisive victory over Ohio State, Fats Russell, who is averaging 22.5 points per game over his last 6 games, scored 27 points for Maryland. The performance tied Aaron Wiggins for the second most points scored in a game for Maryland since the start of the 2020-2021 season.
Okay.
The most points scored since the start of that season was by Hakeem Hart when he went off for 32 points on December 4th, 2020 versus St. Peter's.
Sure.
It was
a legendary night.
It was the 13th time in school history that a player scored 32 points or more, a feat accomplished by 8 other players. Can you name them? And I have to give you a hint because it's not They have all occurred. The first occurrence was in 2002.
Well, Gravis, I know.
Gravis Vasquez, how many times?
I want to say he did it twice.
Graves Vasquez did it 3 times, including the all-time Maryland University of Maryland high 41 on February 27th, 2010.
I do remember that. In fact, that might have even been that Virginia Tech game that Jeremy was just talking about. Since 2002. 30
the first
point
occurrence
games.
was in 2002.
Right, I know. So they're all since 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I just wanted to make sure there was no...
No, that's all. This is a bad era of Maryland basketball, man. Remembering things that occurred in this era is brutal.
There's only one name on here that I wouldn't expect you to get.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Okay, so we're just throwing out the really good players. I get that, but Melo Trimble.
Melo Trimble did it once.
And I think I remember that. But even that I'm not certain of.
Right.
Diamond Stone had that crazy game against Penn State.
He did it once.
I think he scored. I don't remember what he scored.
He was like 35.
Yeah, he had that, but it was one game and he had just nuts. Because I really wish I could remember these. That's the only part that's driving me crazy. So something that happened in 2002. So I'll assume Juan
Dixon. He did it one time.
And I'm missing 4 more guys.
Mm-hmm. 2 of them did it twice.
2 of them did it twice. I'll say Nick Kaner Medley.
He did it twice.
I'll say God, these are bad teams. Cowan.
No, first miss.
I'll say, because I just don't remember some of these guys having done it. That's the problem. Jalen had a big game, but I don't think he had a 30-point game.
He had a 29-point game.
How about Mike Jones?
No. Mike Jones.
Yeah, I know. Don't act like you don't know the name. I don't know. Layman. I don't remember that happening.
Mm-mm.
I don't remember. This is bad. How about? I don't remember him doing it. I don't remember any of these guys doing it. That's the problem. Chris McCray.
No.
DJ Strawberry.
No.
Somebody did it twice?
Mm-hmm. A name that you should know, but it's kind of often forgotten. Because I don't think he had a very long tenure in Maryland.
He had a very long tenure at Maryland.
And maybe he did, but I don't remember it.
The next guy I was going to guess is that wouldn't fall into that category, but I'll guess John Gilchrist.
No. For all I know, this guy played there for 4 years, but I don't really remember him.
Good. So you might not be helping me in any way. In fact, you might be doing the exact opposite of that. Man. Yeah, I mean, you might have to give me something on some of these guys. I don't know, man. I'm struggling.
He has the same initials as T. Sizzle.
Terrell Stoglin. Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he did it
you're
twice.
Right. I do remember that now. He did. God, those are bad teams. Oh, those were just wretched teams.
So you have the one left that I wouldn't expect you to get, and one that I'm surprised you haven't named yet.
Keyshawn Howard.
No. I think that's who I was thinking of that wasn't here very long.
Drew Nicholas.
No.
Steve Blake.
No.
God. Yuck. How about Des Wells?
Des Wells. That's the one I was surprised you hadn't named yet.
Man,
and then you have one
I don't
more.
really remember Des Wells doing it. He's okay. One more. James Gist.
I don't think you're ever going to get this.
Bombale Osby.
No.
Boom, I believe they called him. Bruno Fernando, Alex Lynn, Landon Milbourne, Eric Hayes. These are.
You want to just give up?
You can't give me anything for it.
Kenny
Beckway.
I'd never even heard of him. If I'm being perfectly honest with you.
I mean, that's not. I've definitely heard of all of these guys. So, Nick Faust.
You know, I'm saying I can't give you any hints because I don't know what hint to give you.
Sean Mosley.
No.
All right, you can tell me. It's fine.
Seth Allen.
He ended up at Virginia Tech, or became from Virginia Tech. Seth Allen was involved with Virginia Tech in some sort of way. I 1,000% have no memory of Seth Allen scoring 30 points. Did he go to Virginia? I just want to know if he came from Virginia Tech or went to Virginia Tech. That's the only part I can't remember. Whatever. There you go. That's that. Oh, so the last 20 years of Maryland basketball, I just sort of want to pretend like haven't happened. That's the problem with all of this. All right, very good. And here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise. Totally Tubular is brought to you by Simply the Bets. I need to tease something. We're going to be making changes to our betting programming probably as early as this week. I just can't confirm exactly what it's going to be, but there's going to be a new sports betting show that we're going to be introducing, and we're likely to be shifting the day time of Simply the Bets. It's brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, and we're still going to be doing it. It's just there's going to be some changes. I just can't fully explain all of it to you just yet, but I promise it's coming, and it'll continue to be the exact same show that you've expected, just in a different presentation. Those details coming probably very, very, very soon, if I had to guess. Like, extraordinarily soon. Just guessing that. Here's what's coming up tonight. Totally tubular-wise. A lot of college hoops. By the way, Towson is doing a bit. So because this is only a half a game that they're playing tonight, and not even fully, they are giving $6 tickets to get in, to watch Towson hoops tonight at 6 o'clock, to try to get you to go. Again, it's a very strange scenario. They're playing half of a basketball game. They've got to finish off this game they started against Delaware a few weeks ago, and they're down by 9 as it gets underway. You can watch it on Flow Sports tonight at 6. Morgan's at home at 8 against UMES. Coppin hosts Delaware State at 7:30 on their respective websites. Big Ten Hoops tonight, Northwestern and Iowa at 8 on Big Ten Network. NBC Sports Washington, Maple Leafs Caps at 7:30, NHL Network Bruins Kings at 10:30, NBA TV Hornets Bucks at 8, and the USA Network for WWE Monday Night Raw at 8 as well. Some non-sports highlights.
Bob Odenkirk is going to be on Stephen Colbert ahead of April's premiere of Better Call Saul. Kate McKinnon's going to be on the Tonight Show.
He's done a lot of interviews, Bob Odenkirk, since he had that. He nearly died, didn't he?
Yeah, nearly died. I haven't seen him.
I don't think I've seen him do much.
Do anything.
All right.
It was on set too. Kate McKinnon, who's playing Carol Baskin in the new Tiger King movie, I think it is.
It's a series. It's a series. It's going to be on Peacock, and I want to say it starts on Thursday, if I remember correctly.
It does start this week. She is on Jimmy Fallon tonight. You have Secrets of Playboy, Glenn's favorite show, at 9 o'clock on A&E. Then you have American Dad at 10 o'clock on TBS.
When does Joe versus Carol debut? That's the name of the show, Joe versus Carol. And the first episode is going... I'm not seeing when. Thursday, March 3rd. Yeah, so Thursday is when you'll. I don't know. I don't know if it'll get my.
Kate McKinnon's so funny.
I love Kate McKinnon. I'm just so done with Tiger King.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being excited when they announced this, and then I, honest to God, think them trying to do another season of Tiger King has, like, soured me on this.
Right.
If they just hadn't done that, I'm just so over it. I'm so. If I start hearing from people it's really good, I'll watch it, but I'm not
invested yet.
Anticipating it the same way. But it starts on Thursday. All right, very good. Thanks today to Lonny Baxter. Thanks to Dan Bonner. Thanks as well to Jeremy Conn. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the
Archives
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Of course, it's Patrick Stevens tomorrow. Stuff and things on tomorrow's program. We'll let you know. And, again, probably some changes related to our betting program. Just going to let you know about it when we can. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, the CIAA Tournament, Grade 8's Memorabilia, Live Casino and Hotel, Underdog Fantasy Football, Blue Line K9, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Paul. Follow him on Twitter at Paul Valley III. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Monday evening. Go Towson, go Morgan, go Coppin. Duke sucks. Ohio